The millionaire's ex-wife. A shocking encounter that changed everything. He was dining alone. A millionaire used to getting his way when he saw her. His ex-wife. And with her, 3 girls who looked exactly like him. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. Enjoy the story, and don't forget to like this video. Comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. On a typical Tuesday night in Manhattan, Charles Sterling, in his bespoke Italian shoes, walked into the Eden, a high-end restaurant on the Upper East Side. The maitre d' greeted him with a familiar nod. "Your usual table is ready, Mr. Sterling," Javier said, leading him to a corner table with a view of Central Park. A young sommelier approached with the wine list, but Charles waved him off. "The usual Bordeaux, please, Thomas." As Thomas went to fetch the wine, Charles idly scrolled through his phone. 3 missed calls from his mother. Probably another attempt to set him up with someone. She still hadn't forgiven him for letting Aurora go 9 years ago. The memory of Aurora Castillo still stung like a paper cut, small but sharp, making itself known when he least expected it. He was about to check his emails when a sound caught his attention. A familiar laugh that sent shivers down his spine. A laugh that haunted his memories, the one that used to wake him up on quiet Sunday mornings. He instinctively turned his head towards the sound, and the world seemed to stop. There, being led to a table on the other side of the restaurant, was Aurora. Her chestnut hair, now cut just below her shoulders, fell in elegant waves and still moved with the grace that had captivated him back in their university days. She wore a dark green dress that enhanced the sparkle in her eyes, even from that distance. But it wasn't just her presence that took his breath away. Next to her, walking like small reflections of their mother, were 3 girls. All shared Aurora's chestnut hair, and as they got closer, Charles could see his own gray eyes in them. They looked to be about 9 years old. It wasn't hard to do the math. Charles's hand clenched on the edge of the table so hard that his knuckles turned white. One of the girls carried a book and walked with her head down, almost bumping into a waiter. Another observed everything around her with an insatiable curiosity, noticing every detail as if memorizing it forever. The third walked tall, with an impeccable posture that painfully reminded Charles of his own mother. He watched, paralyzed, as they sat down at a table just 2 sections away from his, so close that he could hear snippets of their conversation. So close that it was impossible for Aurora not to notice him. Thomas returned with the wine, but Charles barely registered his presence. His mind raced with memories. The last time he saw Aurora, their final argument about him taking over the family company instead of venturing out together. How she had disappeared without a trace afterward. He had tried to find her, but she had changed her number, moved away, and her family had closed ranks. Now he understood why. One of the girls, the curious one, was already looking at him, tilting her head slightly, as if trying to solve a puzzle. He could see his own reflection in her gaze, and it made his heart race. The weight of what he had lost, of what he had never known, threatened to crush him if he got up and left. Should he confront her? Should he pretend he hadn't seen them? 9 years of business training, of making million-dollar decisions in seconds, and none of it had prepared him for this moment. Then Aurora looked up, and their eyes met across the restaurant. Charles's face paled, and the menu he was holding slipped from his hands, clattering against the fine china. For what seemed like an eternity, neither of them moved. The bustle of the restaurant faded away, leaving only the sound of Charles's heart pounding in his ears. The curious girl, he couldn't help but think of her as his daughter now, tugged on Aurora's sleeve and whispered something that brought her back to reality. "Mom, why does that man look so much like the picture in your memory box?" The girl's voice was clear enough for Charles to hear, and each word felt like another crack in the wall he had carefully built around his past. Aurora quickly regained her composure. Years of keeping it together, her experience as a high school drama teacher, were evident. "Camilla, honey, please focus on choosing something to eat." But her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the fallen menu, and Charles could see her chest rising and falling rapidly, a sure sign of her nervousness. The bookish daughter was eyeing her novel, A Wrinkle in Time, and looked at him with an intensity that reminded him of seeing himself in a mirror. The third girl, the one with perfect posture, whispered something to her sisters that made them all giggle, although their mother's face remained tense. Charles left his wine untouched, the condensation beating on the glass like the sweat forming on his palms. 1,000 questions swirled in his head. Why hadn't she told him? How could she have kept it from him? What were their names? Did they know anything about him? The weight of 9 years of missed bedtime stories and first days of school pressed on his chest. His phone vibrated. Another call from his mother. If she only knew he was a grandfather of triplets. The idea almost made him laugh at the absurdity of it all. His mother, who had been insisting on grandchildren for years, had 3 she had never met. Javier approached Aurora's table with his typical gesture, and Charles could hear him greet them. "Ah, Mrs. Castillo, welcome back." And to the young ladies, Camila, Valeria, and Sophia. "What a pleasure to see you again. You're regulars." How had he not run into them before? The names resonated in his mind. Camila, Valeria, Sophia. He associated them with what he had observed. Camila must be the curious one. Valeria, the reader, and Sophia, the perfect lady. They were beautiful names, just the unique and meaningful choices he would expect from Aurora. He had always been fascinated by how nature and humanity intertwine, always dreamed of names that told stories. "Mom!" Valeria's voice was softer than Camilla's, but just as clear. "Isn't that the man from your old business plan? The one in the coffee shop picture?" Aurora blushed, and Charles remembered their shared dream, a chain of artistic coffee shops called Castillo Blanco that would blend her creativity with his business acumen. The plan. They had spent countless nights perfecting that dream, which dissolved when he decided to take over the family company's stores. Sophia, always serene, meticulously aligned her silverware and spoke with poise. "Mother, I believe it would be impolite to stare, even if he does bear a striking resemblance to us." Aurora cut her off, her voice tense but polite. "Please, let's just enjoy our celebratory dinner." Celebration? Charles's mind was racing. What were they celebrating? Had he missed a birthday or an achievement? How many other celebrations had he missed? He found himself standing without consciously deciding to. He felt like his legs were made of wood. As he took the first step towards the table, he saw Aurora's eyes widen and her hand instinctively reach out, as if to protect her daughters, their daughters. Thomas appeared at his side. "Sir, is everything all right with the wine?" Charles barely heard him. 9 years of leading board meetings had taught him to make decisions with firmness. Even though his inner world was crumbling, each step towards the table felt like walking through a deep current. But he kept moving forward. He needed to know. He needed to understand. The girls watched him approach, each with a different expression. Camilla's evident curiosity, Valeria's perceptive assessment over her book, and Sophia's observant calm. 3 distinct versions of his own face looked back at him, mixed with Aurora's features in a way that made his heart ache. Aurora stood up just as he reached their table, placing herself in front of the girls in an instinctive protective gesture. Up close, he could see that the years had treated her well. She was even more beautiful than he remembered, with small lines around her eyes that indicated a life filled with laughter he hadn't been a part of. "Charles," she said, her voice barely audible, but still with that musicality that had always made him smile every morning. Now, it tied a knot in his chest filled with regret. "Aurora," he managed to say, though his voice sounded foreign to him. Then, unable to stop himself, he looked at each of the girls. And Camila, Valeria, and Sophia. The silence that followed was deafening. Camila was the first to break the tension, leaning forward over the table despite Sophia's disapproving look. "So, you're him, the man from the coffee shop plants. Mom keeps them at home." "Camila," Aurora warned, her voice trembling slightly. The restaurant continued its elegant dance of waiters and quiet conversations, oblivious to the emotional earthquake unfolding at their table. "Please," Charles said, his voice raw with emotion. "May I sit down?" He gestured to an empty chair at their table, his eyes fixed on Aurora's face. She hesitated, then nodded slightly and leaned back in her seat. Valeria carefully marked her place in her book and set it aside. Her gray eyes, the same as his, watched him with an intensity that tightened his throat. "Mom says you're very good at business," she said matter-of-factly. "She uses your company's success as a case study in her economics class." Charles raised his eyebrows, looking at Aurora. "Economics?" A slight blush colored her cheeks. "I now teach business and drama at Wellington High. The students really respond to real-world examples." Sophia, even more upright, added, "Our mother is the youngest department head. She's very talented." A protective pride filled Charles's voice. Someone had taught these girls to look after their mother, to be her champions. Someone who wasn't him. "That doesn't surprise me," he said softly, remembering how Aurora had always been the smartest person in any room, even if she never showed it. "You always had a gift. For teaching, for helping people discover their potential." "How did she do it with you?" Camila asked innocently, although there was nothing innocent about how the question made Aurora pale. Memories flooded him. Aurora staying up late to help him study for his business finals, her brilliant suggestions during his internship presentations, how she had always pushed him to think big, to dream bolder, until he had chosen the safe path instead of their shared dream. "Yes," he answered honestly, looking directly at Aurora. "Exactly like that." A waiter approached their table, hesitated at the obvious tension, and then cleared his throat. "Shall I add anything else, madam?" "Sterling?" Before Aurora could answer, Sophia intervened with perfect social grace. "Yes, please. Today we are celebrating our academic achievements, and it seems appropriate that all interested parties be present." She emphasized the last words in such a way that Charles wondered how much these girls knew about him. "Academic achievements?" he seized the opportunity to ask. Valeria smiled slightly. "We each received a special recognition. I won the regional science fair with my project on sustainable urban agriculture." Camila almost bounced in her seat. "I got the lead role in the school play. It's The Wizard of Oz. I'm playing Dorothy." "And I," said Sophia proudly, "was elected the youngest student body president in the school's history." Charles felt like he had been punched in the stomach. They were so accomplished, so brilliant, so much like him and Aurora in different ways. His eyes burned as he looked at Aurora. "They're incredible," he murmured. "They are," she agreed softly, and then added, a hint of steel in her voice. "They already had everything they needed." The unspoken words hung in the air. They didn't need you. But looking at these three extraordinary girls, his daughters, Charles wasn't so sure anymore. The waiter returned with the silverware, and as he placed it down, Charles noticed something that chilled him to the bone. In Valeria's book was a familiar leather bookmark, one he had given Aurora years ago, engraved with her favorite quote. "Some infinities are bigger than other infinities." She had kept it. All this time. She had kept it, and now her daughter was using it, probably without knowing its significance. How many other parts of him had Aurora woven into her daughter's lives without them knowing? "Mr. Sterling," Sophia said formally, pulling him from his thoughts. "Since you are joining our celebratory dinner, perhaps you would also be interested to know about our plans for the future. We have been very strategic in our approach to high school." High school. The words hit him like stones. His daughters were planning their future, and he barely knew them. The weight of everything he had lost pressed down on him, threatening to crush him completely. The waiter arrived with the menus, offering a momentary reprieve from the tension. Charles watched as each girl handled the menu differently. Valeria methodically evaluating the options, Camila flipping through the pages with enthusiasm, and Sophia carefully examining the wine list, despite being too young to order. "The coca oven is excellent here," Charles commented automatically, and then realized he was giving menu suggestions to his own daughters, as if they were colleagues. The absurdity of the situation threatened to overwhelm him. "It's Mom's favorite dish," Camila said cheerfully. "She always orders it on special occasions." She paused, tilting her head. "Did you know that? Is that why you're ordering it too?" Aurora's hand tightened on her water glass. "Camila, remember what we've discussed about asking personal questions." "But Mom," Camila protested, "you always say that knowledge is power, and Mr. Sterling seems to know a lot about you. Besides, he has the same gray eyes as us, and the same furrow between his eyebrows when he thinks hard, just like Sophia when she prepares her speeches for student council." Valeria looked up from the menu, her analytical mind piecing things together. "And he has the same habit of touching his left fist when he's nervous, just like me during science presentations." "Girls," Aurora's voice was strained. "Please no," Charles intervened softly. "They deserve answers." He looked at each girl in turn, then at Aurora. "They deserve the truth." "The truth." Sophia's voice was cautious, measured. "About why your picture is in Mom's memory box. About why she keeps the old Castillo Blanco business plans in her desk drawer. About why she always gets quiet on Father's Day." Aurora fell completely silent, and Charles felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. He hadn't known about Father's Day, hadn't known she still thought about then. Or perhaps, Sophia continued with the same precision, about why Mom accepted that teaching position at Wellington High 9 years ago, even though it was on the other side of the country from where he was building his company. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Wellington High was in Seattle. That's why he had never seen them here. They must be in New York for a special occasion. The regional science fair, the school play, the student council position. These weren't just common achievements. They were the reasons they had returned to the city where it had all begun. "You moved to Seattle," he said quietly, looking at Aurora. "That's why I could never find you." "I had to," she whispered, and for the first time he saw tears in her eyes. "You had chosen your path. I had to choose mine." "Without telling me anything about them?" The words came out sharper than he intended, and he saw the 3 girls flinch slightly. "You made it very clear that Castillo Blanco was your priority," Aurora said, her voice tight. "The night you told me you were taking over the company instead of starting Castillo Blanco with me, you said, and I quote, 'Some dreams have to die so others can live.' Remember?" "Yes, I remember." He had been so sure he was doing the right thing, following in his father's footsteps, securing their future. Their future, he had thought at the time. He hadn't known that future was already forming inside her. 3 little lives that would inherit his gray eyes and her tenacious spirit. 3 weeks after that night, Aurora continued, her voice barely audible. "I found out I was pregnant with triplets. I went to your office to tell you." Charles's stomach clenched. He knew exactly what she was going to say next. The memory of that day had haunted him for years, though for completely different reasons than he had imagined. "But you were in a board meeting," she finished for him, her voice hoarse. And your assistant told me you were too busy to see anyone, not even me, that you had told them not to disturb you under any circumstances. Camila exhaled softly as Valeria's hand found her mother's under the table. Sophia's perfect posture faltered for the first time as she looked at her parents. You never came back, Charles said, and the realization hit him like a punch. That was the last time you tried to contact me. What would have been the point? Aurora asked, and now the tears were flowing freely. You had made your decision, your father's company, your legacy. I wasn't going to trap you in a life you hadn't chosen. The silence that followed was only broken by the soft clinking of fine china at nearby tables. Charles looked at his hand spread out on the immaculate white tablecloth, trying to grasp the magnitude of what he had lost, with a simple order to his assistant. No interruptions. You thought you were protecting me, he said slowly, looking at Aurora. By not telling me, you thought you were freeing me to pursue my ambitions? Weren't those ambitions worth more to you than anything else? The bitterness in her voice was tinged with an old pain. The great Charles Sterling, following in his father's footsteps, building an empire. An empty empire, he replied, his voice breaking. Do you know what I did with Castillo Blanco? Our plans? All four of them looked at him with identical curiosity. Even Sophia seemed to forget her perfect posture as she leaned forward slightly. I built it anyway, 3 years ago. Not as our chain of coffee shops, but as a charitable foundation. It funds arts education and business training for underprivileged youth, because every time I passed a coffee shop, I remembered our dream. I remembered you. Aurora brought her hand to her mouth. The Castillo Blanco Foundation. It's yours. It's mine, she confirmed, and then looked at the girls. And now I suppose it's theirs, too. Valeria's analytical mind was clearly racing, in addition to everything else. The foundation that funded our school's new performing arts center. It's named after Mom. It's named after both of you, Charles said softly. Castillo Blanco. I never stopped thinking about what we could have built together. Camila, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke. Mom cries every time she reads about the foundation in the newspaper. She keeps all the articles in her. Camila, Sophia interrupted, showing a protectiveness that tugged at Charles's heart. These girls had grown up watching their mother carry this burden alone. No, it's okay, Aurora said, dabbing her eyes with her napkin. They should know. I kept all the articles because I wanted you girls to know that Mr. Sterling, does good things in the world. That it's not just about profit margins and corporate takeovers. But you never told him about us, Valeria said, a hint of accusation in her voice. We could have known him. We could have been part of that good work. Would you have wanted that? Charles asked suddenly, looking at each girl in turn. To know me? To be part of my life? We already are, in a way, Sophia replied diplomatically. Our mother made sure we knew about Blanco Technologies' environmental initiatives. We follow your company's charitable works. We even, she glanced at her sisters, who nodded encouragingly, even bought shares in the company with our allowance last year. 1 share each. Charles felt his heart swell. Your shareholders, very small ones, Valeria clarified. But we wanted to own a piece of, well, of your world. Even if you didn't know about us, I would have given you the world, Charles whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Everything I've built, everything I am, it would have been yours. It should have been yours. And now, Camila asked, her usual bubbly curiosity replaced by an almost desperate hope. Could it be ours now? Aurora took her daughter's hand, but Charles spoke first. It already is. Whether you want it or not, whether you're ready or not, everything I have is yours. My name, my company, my foundation, and my heart. If you want it. Aurora's breath hitched. Charles, you can't just what? His voice was soft but firm. Can't just offer my daughters what is rightfully theirs? Can't just try to make up for 9 lost years? It's not that simple, Aurora protested. But Sophia interrupted her with an uncharacteristic emotion in her usually controlled voice. Why not? She asked, her perfect composure cracking a little. We've spent our whole lives knowing half of who we are, reading about our father in business magazines, watching his interviews on CNBC, pretending we're only interested in the business success stories. She paused, recomposing herself. When we just wanted to know if we inherited our love for numbers from him or from you. The numbers are definitely from him, Aurora said softly, a small smile playing on her lips. I was always the creative one. But both are in us, Valeria observed, her analytical mind working overtime. Like when Camila acts. She has your dramatic flair, Mom, but Dad's strategic thinking when approaching each role. The word Dad hung in the air like a fragile soap bubble, and Charles's heart skipped a beat at hearing it for the first time. And when Sophia runs student council meetings, Camila added, enthusiastic about the topic. She uses Mom's teaching techniques, but Dad's negotiation strategies. We've watched all your TED Talks, Dad, Sophia added, looking at Charles slightly flushed. All of them? Charles asked, his voice thick with emotion. Valeria confirmed several times. We've analyzed your speaking patterns, your management philosophies, your approach to corporate responsibility. It's like we've been studying for an exam we never thought we'd take. The waiter approached again, looking unsure. Would you like to order? Yes, Sophia said decisively, taking charge again. I think we all need a moment to properly review the menus, and perhaps, she added with a meaningful look at her mother, consider new possibilities. As everyone picked up their menus, Charles noticed that Aurora's hands were trembling slightly. He wanted to reach out and calm them, as he used to before her drama performances in college. But he no longer had that right. Oh, Aurora, he said quietly as the girls debated appetizers. I know this is overwhelming for everyone, but they are extraordinary. You did an incredible job raising them, and if you'll let me, I would like to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve them. Trying to deserve you. We can't just erase 9 years, she whispered. No, he agreed. But maybe we can build something new. Something even better than Castillo Blanco. Before Aurora could respond, Camila's voice interrupted with her characteristic enthusiasm. Mom, they have your favorite chocolate souffle for dessert. Remember you said it reminded you of your first date? She stopped abruptly, looking at her parents with wide eyes. Oh, with Dad. Here, in this restaurant. The memory hit them both at the same time. Their first date at the Eden, barely affordable on their grad student budgets, sharing the same souffle because they could only afford one dessert between them. Had Aurora been coming here all these years, ordering the same dessert, keeping that memory alive? Her gaze told him everything he needed to know. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of the incredible stories we'll be posting soon. Your support greatly helps the channel grow and allows us to bring you more of what you love. Thank you. The waiter returned to take their order, creating a brief respite from the emotional intensity. Charles couldn't help but notice how each girl ordered. Valeria, requesting detailed information about the preparation methods. Camila choosing with impulsive enthusiasm, and Sophia negotiating a subtle menu modification with diplomatic skill. Like a board meeting, he murmured, earning an inquisitive look from Aurora. The analyst, the innovator, and the negotiator. They're like the perfect corporate team. They're not a corporate team, Aurora said sharply, and then softened. They're just girls. They're girls who need to be allowed to just be girls. Charles nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. I think I'm trying to find ways to connect with them through the only world I've known for the past 9 years. We don't mind, Valeria interjected, who had clearly been listening. In fact, I wanted to ask you about your recent shift towards sustainable technology investments. The market analysis you published last quarter suggested— Valeria, Aurora interrupted gently. Perhaps we could save the business conversation for— For when? Sophia challenged, surprising everyone with her intensity. For another 9 years? Mom, we've spent our lives tiptoeing around this, around him, around who we are. Maybe it's time to stop pretending we're just 3 random talented students from Wellington High. Camilla nodded vigorously. Yeah. You know how hard it is to pretend we don't notice when business newspapers have Dad's picture on the cover? Or when other kids talk about the Castillo Blanco Foundation's latest project? Or when Grandma Sterling tells us we have our father's business sense but refuses to say anything else about him? Only by accident, Sophia clarified. Usually, after her second glass of wine at Christmas dinners, she keeps a picture of you and Mom from college in her study, but she turns it face down every time we visit. The mention of Margaret Sterling brought another wave of memories. Her unwavering support for his relationship with Aurora in college, her devastation when they broke up. He had always wondered if she knew about the girls, if she had played a part in the decision to keep them from him. She never forgave me, he said quietly, for choosing the company over her daughter. Over all of us, Aurora corrected, but now her voice sounded less harsh. Though I suppose we didn't give you a chance to choose otherwise. Would you have chosen differently? Camilla asked suddenly. If you had known about us. The question hung in the air like a sustained note in a symphony. Charles looked at each of their faces, those extraordinary girls who carried his DNA, but who had been molded by Aurora's love and guidance. He thought of the lonely years at the top of Blanco Technology, the empty victory of each successful merger, the empty penthouse he returned to each night. In a heartbeat, he answered, his voice rough with conviction. Everything I've built, everything I've achieved, means nothing compared to what I missed with you. With all of you. Aurora audibly caught her breath, and he saw tears welling in her eyes again. The girls exchanged glances, a kind of silent communication between them. Well, Sophia said, straightening her silverware with deliberate precision. Perhaps it's not too late to make a different decision. The arrival of the appetizers provided a moment of normalcy in the surreal evening. Charles watched as Valeria methodically photographed her plate for research purposes, while Camilla dove in with enthusiasm, and Sophia waited for everyone to start before taking her first bite. So, Charles ventured, you're all in Seattle, at Wellington High. Not for long, Camilla said eagerly, and quickly covered her mouth when Sophia shot her a warning look. Oops, Aurora sighed, putting down her fork. We were going to announce this tonight. Before all of this, I was offered a position as the head of creative arts and business education at Riverside Academy, here in New York. Charles's heart skipped a beat. Riverside? That's 10 minutes from Blanco Technology headquarters. We know, Valeria said meaningfully. We thoroughly researched the school's location in relation to various points of interest in the city. The girls were accepted into their gifted program, and Aurora gradually joined in. Full scholarships. We were planning to move here this summer before the new school year. The past tense immediately caught Charles's attention. Mom, surely this doesn't change our plans. If anything, Valeria interjected, the proximity to both parents could provide enhanced opportunities for academic and personal growth. Camilla nodded enthusiastically. Besides, their drama department is amazing, and they have a business innovation club that works directly with real companies. And she trailed off, looking at him hopefully. And perhaps, she said carefully, they might be interested in working with the Castillo Blanco Foundation, or even Blanco Technology's youth mentorship program. Charles, Aurora warned, but he could see the resolve weakening in her eyes. I'm not trying to buy their affection, he said quickly, but these programs exist. They're designed precisely for the kind of bright young minds I see at this table. Their father, Aurora repeated softly, testing the words. It's still so strange to hear it out loud. Strange but true, Sophia declared with her characteristic diplomacy. And as the elected student body president of my school, I can state with some authority that refusing to acknowledge the truth rarely leads to productive outcomes. Valeria put down her fork with scientific precision. I've been analyzing the variables influencing our potential relocation, the academic opportunities, the cultural advantages, the proximity to extended family, including newly discovered family. She glanced at Charles. The data strongly supports the decision, and I've already memorized my audition monologue for Riverside's drama club, Camilla added. It's from that play you did with Mom in college. Mom? The Glass Menagerie. Aurora's hand trembled as she picked up her water glass. You found our old program in your memory box, the three girls said in unison, and then laughed at their synchronicity. That memory box has a lot to say, Charles said with a small smile, and then turned serious. But perhaps it was about saving these memories until we were ready to face them, until we were ready to create new ones. Mom keeps saying we shouldn't live in the past, Sophia pointed out, that we should always look forward, plan for the future. The future, Charles repeated thoughtfully. You know, I've spent 9 years planning a future. I thought I wanted board meetings, acquisitions, expansions. But sitting here now, looking at all of you, I realize I've been planning the wrong future all along. The main courses arrived, steaming and artfully presented, but no one seemed particularly interested in the food. Charles watched as Aurora, unconsciously, smoothed Camilla's napkin, a maternal instinct he hadn't seen develop. I have a confession to make, he said, suddenly causing all 4 of them to look up from their Tuesday night dinner reservation. It wasn't just a habit. I kept it because... She paused, gathering her courage. Because this was our night, a date every Tuesday for 2 years in college. I guess I never let it go. Just like my mother never gave up on the coffee shop dream, Valeria observed. She has 3 different business plans in her desk, each updated to current market conditions. Aurora blushed. You went through my desk? For research purposes, Sophia clarified diplomatically. We were trying to understand everything. Everything we missed, Charles said quietly. Everything I missed. First steps, first words, first business proposals, Camilla added with a grin. We tried to sell lemonade futures in the yard last year. Futures. Charles couldn't help but laugh. How did that work out? We cornered the market by pre-selling to the teachers, Valeria explained. Then we reinvested the profits in a cookie venture that Sophia negotiated with the school cafeteria, Camilla added proudly. The profit margins were quite respectable, Sophia said, straightening up. Though Mom made us donate most of it to the school library. Aurora shook her head, but she was smiling. I should have known they inherited that entrepreneurial spirit from you. They've been running small businesses since they were 6, Charles said, his voice cracking slightly. 6. What was your first venture? The girls exchanged glances before Valeria answered. We sold friendship bracelets, but with a twist. We offered an insurance policy. If the friendship ended, they could return the bracelet and get store credit. Store credit? Charles looked at Aurora in amazement. At 6 years old, they implemented a whole return policy system, she confirmed, with a customer satisfaction survey included. The data helped us improve our product line, Valeria explained seriously. Charles felt tears pricking his eyes again. They were so much like him, but so uniquely them, so shaped by Aurora's guidance, but with his business instincts in their DNA. I want to know everything, he said suddenly, his voice intense. Every business, every play, every science project. I want to know about their first day of school, their favorite books, their biggest dreams. He looked at Aurora pleadingly. I want to be their father, not just biologically, but their dad, if you'll let me. We want that too, Sophia said softly, speaking for all 3 girls. We've already achieved so much, but she looked at her sisters, who nodded encouragingly. But we've always felt like there was a vital member missing from our board of directors in our lives. That's a very professional way to put it, Aurora said, but her voice was gentle. Well, we are Sterlings, Camila pointed out. Even though we've been using the last name Castillo, the silence that followed was charged with possibilities. Charles looked at Aurora, really looked at her, seeing both the girl he had loved in college and the strong woman who had raised their daughters alone. What if, he said slowly, we stopped letting the fear of the past dictate our future? What if we took all this love, all this potential, and built something new? Not just fancy coffee shops, but something bigger. A family. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. This way you won't miss any of the incredible stories we'll be posting soon. Your support greatly helps the channel grow and allows us to bring you more of what you love. Thank you. Aurora dabbed her eyes with her napkin, composing herself before speaking. A family isn't built as easily as a business. It requires time, trust, and patience. Like a long-term investment, Valeria offered, earning a small smile from both parents. Exactly, Aurora agreed. And while I appreciate your enthusiasm, we need to think about what's best for the girls. We're right here, Sophia reminded them gently. And we're old enough to have a say in this corporate merger. Charles couldn't help but chuckle at their words. You're right. Perhaps we should put it to a vote. Democratic process and all that. Like a shareholders meeting. Camila bounced in her seat. Since we're all shareholders now. Minority shareholders, Valeria reminded her sister. But she was smiling too. Well, Sophia said, straightening up even further. If it's permissible, as the interim chairwoman of this meeting, I propose we discuss the practicalities of integrating the CEO of Blanco Technology into our family structure. Seconded, Valeria added, immediately pulling out her phone. I've already started a list of pros and cons. Hold on, Aurora interrupted. But now there was a hint of amusement in her voice. This isn't something we can vote on over dinner. Why not? Camila asked. We've been waiting 9 years. Isn't that enough market research? Charles leaned forward, his voice soft but urgent. Aurora, look at them. They are brilliant, thoughtful, and clearly capable of understanding complex situations. They have been observing me from afar all this time, trying to get to know their father through news and annual reports. Don't they deserve the opportunity to really know me? And you don't deserve to know them, he replied softly. The real me, not just his achievements and business ventures, but his fears, his doubts, his messy mornings, and his grumpy evenings. Everything, he said with firmness. I want it all. The good days and the bad days, the successes and the failures, the science fairs and the scraped knees. I have a scar from falling off my bike, Camila offered helpfully. Want to see? Not at the table, darling, Aurora said automatically, and then caught herself, resorting to familiar parenting patterns in front of Charles. The reality of what sharing these moments would mean seemed to hit her hard. I have a proposal, Sophia announced, pulling out a small notebook. A phased integration plan, so to speak, starting with weekly family dinners to establish a base level of compatibility, followed by scheduled activities aligned with our individual interests. Valeria continued, quickly adapting. I have several scientific hypotheses I'd like to discuss from a fresh perspective. I need help with my daughte monologue, Camila added. Mom says you were an amazing wizard in college, Dad. The word dad still sent a jolt through Charles, but this time it was accompanied by a wave of joy instead of pain. He looked at Aurora, trying to convey everything he felt with his eyes. It's evident they inherited your planning skills, he said quietly, and my determination. A dangerous combination, she agreed with a smile. One that will be impossible to resist. We know, the three girls said in unison, and then burst into giggles. The dessert menus arrived. and without further discussion, everyone knew what they would order. The chocolate souffle that held so many memories. While they waited for it to be prepared, the conversation took a serious turn. "There's something else you should know," Aurora said, her fingers tracing the stem of her water glass. "Something I've never told anyone, not even the girls." All four of them leaned forward slightly, impressed by the gravity of her voice. "The day I found out I was pregnant, I didn't just try to tell you once. I went to your office 3 times that week. Each time your assistant told me you were too busy. The third time, I saw you through the glass walls of your office, shaking hands with your father's board members." Charles felt the color drain from his face. "The week of the merger announcement, when we were taking the company private. You looked so satisfied, so sure of your path," she continued. "I watched you for 10 minutes, standing in the lobby, with one hand on my stomach, where our daughters were growing. You didn't look up from your papers, didn't glance towards the lobby where I was waiting. That's when I knew." "Knew what?" Sophia asked softly, losing her usual composure. "That I couldn't be the one to ruin your dreams. Your father was sick. The company needed you. And a pregnancy, especially one as complicated as mine." Aurora's voice broke slightly. "I thought I was being noble, giving you the freedom to become who you were meant to be." "But both were meant to be our parents," Valeria said, her analytical tone giving way to emotion. "According to my calculations, the probability of a successful co-parenting arrangement would have been significantly higher with both parties involved from the outset." "Well said, sister," Camilla said, wiping away tears. Charles leaned across the table, hesitated for a moment, then gently took Aurora's hand. She didn't pull away. "Do you know what I was reading in those newspapers that day?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Expansion plans for a chain of coffee shops. I was trying to figure out how to buy and renovate some struggling cafes, turn them into what we dreamed of with Castillo Blanco. I thought if I could make it successful quickly enough, maybe I'd be forgiven for choosing the company first. I was going to surprise you with it." "Oh," Aurora breathed, understanding dawning in her eyes. "I've spent 9 years building someone else's dream, thinking I'd lost mine." His grip on her hand tightened slightly. "But my dream wasn't just about coffee shops and business plans. It was about building something with you. And now?" "Now there's so much more to build," Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. "Together," Valeria added firmly. "As a family," Camilla concluded, with her characteristic enthusiasm. The souffle arrived at the perfect moment, steaming from its dark, rich surface, just as it had 9 years ago when 2 college graduates shared their dreams over dessert. "I propose an amendment to the integration plan," Sophia announced, sitting up straighter as she fought back tears. "Starting now? Not next week. Not after a period of adequate analysis, now." "Seconded," Valeria said immediately, her eyes suspiciously bright. "All in favor?" Camilla asked. "Braham." Raising her hand, 4 more hands joined hers without hesitation as they shared the souffle. 5 spoons this time, instead of 2. Javier approached their table, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, Miss Castillo, Mr. Sterling, but it's almost closing time." They all looked up in surprise. Somehow the hours had flown by like minutes. The restaurant was almost empty, the city lights twinkling through the windows, where the sunset colors had been at the beginning. "Time flows differently when you're rewriting your future," Sophia observed. "Philosophically speaking, of course," Valeria added, pulling out her phone. "I've prepared a preliminary schedule of family activities, taking into account everyone's current commitments and optimal opportunities for bonding." "And I already told all my friends I'm getting a dad," Camilla announced, nearly making Aurora drop her spoon. "When you sent the group text," Sophia clarified. "Very efficient, though perhaps a bit premature." Charles laughed, a deep, heartfelt laugh that made all 4 of them smile. "Well, I guess that saves us the trouble of a formal announcement." "What exactly are we announcing?" Aurora asked slowly. "It's not just about you meeting the girls, Charles. This is everything. She squeezed his hand, and this time he returned the gesture. Everything is exactly what I want. The company, the foundation, this family. They don't have to be separate dreams anymore. They can be one dream, built together with proper corporate oversight, Sophia added seriously, prompting laughter from everyone. And regular board meetings, Valeria suggested, and family game nights, Camila added. Every successful company needs team-building activities. As they gathered their things to leave, Charles paused for a moment, observing his new family. The girls were already planning the next day's activities with excited voices. Aurora watched them with a mixture of love and awe, as if seeing them from a new perspective. "You know," he said quietly, turning to her, "I always thought my father's greatest lesson was about business. Success is built on relationships," he used to say. But I was wrong for so long. He wasn't talking about business relationships. He was talking about this. He gestured to his daughters. About family. The most important merger of all, Aurora agreed. A meaningful ending. As they walked out of the Eden together, as a family for the first time, the moral of their story was clear. Sometimes, the biggest mistakes in life come from trying to protect others from our love, rather than having the courage to share it. Success isn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in the connections we forge and the love we're willing to fight for. It's never too late to correct course, to choose love over fear, to turn missed opportunities into new beginnings. The best investments we can make aren't in stocks or companies, but in the hearts of those we love. Thank you all for watching this incredible story. Don't forget to like, comment with your thoughts on this family's journey, and share this video with someone who needs to hear its message. Remember, it's never too late for love to find its way home. See you in the next video.
The sound of shattering glass echoed through the penthouse suite of the Alexander Industries Tower. Blake Alexander, 34-year-old tech mogul and Boston's most eligible bachelor, stared in disbelief at the champagne flute fragments scattered across his imported Italian marble floor. She said no. Blake's voice was barely above a whisper, as if speaking the words any louder might make them more real. His assistant, Marcus, shifted uncomfortably by the door. "Yes, sir. Ms. Collins declined your dinner invitation." Her exact words were, "Tell Mr. Alexander I'm not interested in becoming another notch on his designer belt." Blake ran his fingers through his dark, meticulously styled hair. This was unprecedented. Women didn't say no to Blake Alexander. They certainly didn't send back his custom-made invitations delivered with rare blue orchids flown in from Thailand. He owned half of Boston's skyline, for God's sake. "Did you tell her who I am?" Blake demanded, his steel blue eyes narrowing. Marcus adjusted his glasses nervously. She knew exactly who you were, sir. That seemed to be part of the problem." Blake paced the floor, carefully avoiding the glass shards. His reflection bounced off the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the glittering Boston skyline, a kingdom he had built from nothing. A kingdom that apparently held no sway over one Emma Collins, head librarian at the Boston Public Library. "Find out everything about her," Blake ordered, straightening his bespoke suit jacket. "And I mean everything. What she likes, what she hates, her favorite food, books, music." "Sir," Marcus interrupted gently, "maybe the issue is precisely that approach. Your reputation precedes you." Blake stopped pacing. His string of high-profile flings was well documented by the tabloids. The billionaire Casanova, they called him. Last month's charity gala photo of him with twin supermodels still dominated the gossip sites. "I just want dinner with her, Marcus," Blake insisted, though he wasn't entirely sure why this particular rejection stung so much. He had glimpsed Emma only once, during a library fundraiser he'd reluctantly attended. She had been passionately arguing about the importance of physical books in a digital age, completely unaware of who he was, or how much power he wielded in the room. Her complete indifference had been intriguing. Perhaps a less ostentatious approach, Marcus suggested. Blake's phone buzzed. Another crisis at the company needed his attention. Always another crisis. Always another deal. Always another conquest. But for the first time in years, Blake Alexander felt something different stirring. A challenge. "Cancel my meetings tomorrow morning," he said suddenly. "I think it's time I visited the library." What Blake didn't know was that Emma Collins had her own complicated reasons for avoiding men like him, and that his appearance in her carefully ordered world was about to set in motion a chain of events neither of them could have anticipated. As his private elevator descended, Blake smiled to himself. He'd never had to work for a woman's attention before, but then again, he hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by backing down from a challenge. The Boston Public Library's main reading room was bathed in golden morning light as Emma Collins shelved returned books with practiced efficiency. At 32, she found peace in the ordered world of the library that had eluded her in other aspects of life. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a practical bun, her glasses occasionally sliding down her nose as she worked. "Emma, there's someone asking for you at the reference desk," her colleague Olivia whispered, approaching with wide eyes. "And well, you should just come see." Emma frowned. "I'm almost done here. Trust me," Olivia insisted. "You want to handle this one personally." Sighing, Emma followed Olivia to the front where she stopped dead in her tracks. Standing at the reference desk, dressed in a casual button-down that probably cost more than her monthly rent, was Blake Alexander. In person, he was even more striking than in his magazine covers, tall with an easy confidence that radiated power. Several patrons were openly staring. "Ms. Collins," he said with a smile that had charmed countless women across continents. "I'm looking for a book recommendation." Emma's expression remained neutral despite her racing pulse. "What sort of books do you enjoy, Mr. Alexander?" "I'm not sure. That's why I need a librarian's expertise." He leaned against the counter. What would you recommend to someone who's used to getting everything he wants? The self-help section is on the second floor, Emma replied coolly. Specifically, books on handling rejection. A woman nearby stifled a laugh. Blake's smile faltered momentarily before returning with renewed interest. Actually, I'm genuinely looking for something to read. His voice softened. Contrary to what the tabloids suggest, I do read books that aren't quarterly reports. Emma studied him, trying to determine if this was another elaborate attempt to add her to his collection of conquests. Follow me, she finally said, leading him toward the fiction section. Why did you turn down my dinner invitation? Blake asked once they were between the shelves, away from curious eyes. Because I'm not interested in being photographed on your arm, dissected by gossip columns, then discarded when someone more exciting comes along, Emma stated matter-of-factly, pulling a book from the shelf. Here, Pride and Prejudice. It might teach you something about first impressions. I've read it, Blake replied, surprising her. Darcy was misunderstood. Darcy had to earn Elizabeth's respect, Emma countered. Is that what I need to do? Earn your respect? Blake's blue eyes held a challenge. Emma pushed her glasses up. Mr. Alexander. Blake. Mr. Alexander, she insisted. I appreciate the theater of the humble billionaire visiting a public library, but we both know tomorrow you'll be back to your real life. You don't know anything about my real life, he said, a hint of genuine frustration in his voice. I know enough, Emma replied, thinking of her sister Katie's heartbreak after being dumped by a man cut from the same cloth as Blake. Now, if there's nothing else, have dinner with me, Blake said, but this time it wasn't a command. No private jets, no expensive wine, no pressure, just dinner. Why? Emma asked, genuinely curious. There are literally models and actresses lining up for your attention. Blake considered his answer carefully. Because when I donated to the library fundraiser last month, you were the only person who didn't care who I was. You argued with me about digital books versus physical ones without once mentioning my net worth. It was refreshing. Emma remembered the conversation but hadn't realized who he was at the time. She'd been rather passionate, perhaps even rude. One dinner, Blake continued, at a restaurant of your choosing. If you still think I'm the shallow playboy from the tabloids afterward, I'll never bother you again. Before Emma could respond, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Katie. Emergency. Pipe burst in my apartment, everything's flooded, need help. I have to go, Emma said urgently, shoving the phone back in her pocket. Family emergency. As she rushed toward the staff room to grab her things, Blake followed. Let me help. I can have a restoration team there in minutes. This isn't your problem, Emma insisted. Consider it my first attempt at earning respect, Blake offered, already pulling out his phone. Emma hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. Her sister's apartment was her whole world, and time was of the essence with water damage. Fine, she conceded reluctantly. But this doesn't mean I'm having dinner with you. Blake's expression was uncharacteristically sincere. Understood. Now, what's the address? The scene at Katie's apartment was worse than Emma had imagined. Water cascaded from the ceiling, the hardwood floors already buckling. Katie stood in the middle of the chaos, frantically trying to save photo albums and books. Emma, thank God. Katie stopped mid-sentence when she noticed Blake Alexander standing behind her sister. Why is Blake Alexander in my flooded apartment? He offered to help, Emma explained awkwardly. Before Katie could respond, a team of professionals in uniform flooded in, not with water, but with industrial equipment. Blake had made one phone call from the car, and suddenly a full restoration crew was efficiently tackling the disaster. This is Jackson, Blake introduced a man who appeared to be the team leader. He'll make sure everything's handled properly. I should be documenting this for insurance, Katie said, looking overwhelmed. Already taken care of, Jackson assured her. We're photographing everything. As the crew worked, Blake rolled up his sleeves, literally, revealing tanned forearms as he moved furniture away from the worst of the flooding. You don't have to do that, Emma said, surprised. "I'm not completely useless," Blake replied with a half smile. "Contrary to popular belief, I wasn't always rich." Emma raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "It's true," Blake continued, helping her move a bookshelf. "I grew up in South Boston. My dad was a mechanic. When our basement flooded every spring, there was no team to call, just mops and buckets." Emma studied him, trying to reconcile this image with the playboy billionaire from the magazines. "The articles all say you come from old money. That's the story my PR team prefers," Blake admitted. "Sounds better than scholarship kid who got lucky with a tech startup." In the kitchen, Katie was frantically trying to save a stack of papers. Blake noticed Emma's concerned expression. "What are those?" he asked quietly. "Her manuscript," Emma explained. "She's a writer. Been working on that novel for 2 years." Blake immediately went to help, carefully separating the damp pages. "We need a hairdryer and some paper towels," he said with surprising expertise. "If we act fast, we might be able to save most of it." For the next hour, Emma watched in amazement as Blake Alexander, who reportedly once bought a yacht on a whim, painstakingly dried each page of her sister's manuscript. There was something unexpectedly gentle in the way his fingers handled the fragile pages. "Why are you really doing this?" Emma finally asked when they had a moment alone. Blake considered the question. "Maybe I'm trying to prove you wrong about me. Or maybe this is just an elaborate strategy to get me to have dinner with you," Emma countered, though with less conviction than before. Blake's phone rang, the third time in 20 minutes. He glanced at it, then silenced it again. "Don't you need to get that?" Emma asked. "Billion-dollar empires don't run themselves. They can manage without me for one afternoon," Blake replied, though Emma noticed the tension in his jaw. Katie approached them, looking shell-shocked but grateful. "The crew says they've stopped the water and can start drying everything out, but..." She trailed off, looking around her saturated apartment. "You'll need somewhere to stay," Emma finished, her thought. "You can stay with me." "Actually," Blake interjected, "I own a building 2 blocks from here with a fully furnished guest apartment. It's empty right now. You're welcome to use it until your place is fixed." Katie's eyes widened. "I couldn't possibly..." "It's just sitting there," Blake insisted. "Consider it a loan, not charity." Later, after Katie was settled in the immaculate apartment, which Emma suspected was worth more than most people's primary residences, Blake walked Emma to her car. "Thank you," Emma said sincerely, "for helping my sister." "Does this mean I've earned enough respect for that dinner?" Blake asked, his usual confidence tempered with what seemed like genuine uncertainty. Emma hesitated. The man who had spent the afternoon saving her sister's manuscript didn't align with the tabloid caricature she'd judged so harshly. "One dinner," she conceded. "No private dining rooms, no celebrity chef treatment." "Deal," Blake agreed quickly. "Tomorrow night? I know a place that makes incredible ramen, very public, very casual." "Ramen?" Emma couldn't hide her surprise. "Best comfort food in Boston?" Blake said with unexpected enthusiasm. "Unless you'd prefer somewhere else?" Emma shook her head, intrigued despite herself. "Ramen is fine." As they parted ways, Emma realized with alarm that she was actually looking forward to their date. "No," she corrected herself firmly. "Not a date. A dinner." There was a difference. Blake watched her drive away, realizing he'd just rescheduled a crucial investor meeting for a bowl of noodles with a librarian. Marcus would think he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. The ramen shop was tucked away in a narrow alley off the main street, its weathered wooden sign barely visible beneath the soft glow of paper lanterns. Emma arrived 15 minutes early, a habit from childhood she'd never shaken, and found herself scanning the bustling sidewalk for any sign of Blake. She smoothed down her emerald-wrapped dress, chosen after an embarrassingly long deliberation, for someone who'd insisted this wasn't a real date. When Blake appeared, he was almost unrecognizable. Gone was the power suit and slicked-back hair. Instead, he wore dark jeans, a simple navy Henley that accentuated his broad shoulders, and glasses, actual prescription glasses, that lent him an intellectual air Emma hadn't expected. His usual bodyguard and entourage were conspicuously absent. "You look surprised," Blake said, a hint of vulnerability in his smile as he approached. "Disappointed?" "Just processing," Emma admitted, taking in this transformed version of Boston's most notorious playboy. "I didn't recognize you without your billionaire costume." "That's the idea." Blake's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary. "You look beautiful, by the way. Green suits you." A warmth crept up Emma's neck that had nothing to do with the steam rising from the ramen shop's open kitchen. She deflected with practiced ease. "How did you even find this place? It's not exactly on the Billionaire's Guide to Boston." "My college roommate's family owned it," Blake explained as they entered. "I used to wash dishes here when I was broke and trying to launch my first startup." "Hero," he called out to an older Japanese man behind the counter who broke into a wide grin at the sight of him. "Blake-kun, too long." Hero abandoned his post to embrace Blake with genuine affection. "And with a real date, not those plastic women. From TV." Emma couldn't help but laugh at Blake's embarrassed expression. This wasn't the carefully orchestrated charm she'd expected, but something far more appealing: authenticity. They were led to a corner table intimate without being secluded. The restaurant was packed with an eclectic mix of students, local families, and workers from nearby businesses. Not a single person seemed to recognize the tech magnate in their midst. "You come here often?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. "When I need to remember who I really am," Blake replied, then looked immediately self-conscious. That sounded less cliché in my head. "No, I get it." Emma surprised herself with the admission. "Sometimes I hide in the rare manuscripts room at the library when everything gets too loud. Just me and 500-year-old books that have survived wars, plagues, and time itself. Makes my problems seem smaller." The conversation flowed with unexpected ease as they ordered. Blake in fluent Japanese that made Emma raise her eyebrows appreciatively. They shared steaming bowls of tonkotsu ramen, the rich broth swimming with tender slices of chashu pork, perfectly jammy eggs, and springy noodles that demanded their full attention. "So," Blake said, skillfully maneuvering his chopsticks, "what made you become a librarian? Passion for literature or love of silence?" "Both," Emma confessed. "But mostly I believe stories save lives, mine included." She hesitated, then decided to offer a piece of herself. "My mom died when I was 12. Dad worked double shifts to keep us afloat. Books became my escape, my comfort, my education on how to be human when everything hurt too much." Blake's expression softened. "I'm sorry about your mom. Long time ago," Emma said, though the gentle understanding in his eyes made her throat tighten unexpectedly. "What about you? How does a mechanic's son become a tech billionaire before 30? "Sheer terror of ending up back where I started," Blake admitted with startling honesty. "And insomnia. Turns out you can build an empire when you never sleep." "That's not sustainable," Emma observed. "Says who?" Blake challenged with a half-smile. "The dark circles under your eyes," Emma replied boldly, "and the fact that you've checked your phone 17 times in 45 minutes. Blake looked genuinely startled, then chagrined. He pulled out his phone and switched it off completely, a gesture that, for someone like him, felt oddly intimate. "Tell me about your sister," he said, changing the subject. "The writer." Emma's face lit. "But Katie's brilliant. Her novel's about a woman who discovers she can see how much time people have left to live. It explores grief, mortality, the value of moments when you know they're finite." She paused. "She's been rejected by 32 publishers. But she keeps writing. Every day. Sometimes I think she believes in her stories more than she believes in herself." Something shifted in Blake's expression. "I'd like to read it someday." "Why?" Emma challenged. "So you can play literary agent now?" "No," Blake replied seriously. "Because it matters to you." The simple truth of his words hung between them, unexpectedly weighty. Emma searched his face for any sign of the practiced charm she'd been guarding against, but found only earnest attention. Their conversation meandered through books they loved, places they'd traveled, Blake everywhere for business, Emma nowhere but everywhere through pages, and childhood memories both sweet and painful. Time slipped away unnoticed until Hero began to dim the lights, a gentle hint they were closing. "I can't believe it's almost midnight," Emma said, startled. "Shall I walk you home?" Blake offered, then quickly added, "Just to your door. No expectations." The night air was crisp as they strolled through Boston's historic streets, their shoulders occasionally brushing. Emma's apartment was only 15 minutes away, but they took their time, neither quite ready for the evening to end. "You haven't asked about my business once," Blake observed. "Should I have?" Emma replied. "Everyone does. It's usually all they want to talk about." "I'm more interested in the person than the portfolio," Emma said simply. They reached her brownstone apartment building, pausing at the bottom of the steps. The moment stretched between them, electric with possibility. "I had a nice time," Emma admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "Nice enough to do it again?" Blake asked, his usual confidence replaced by something more tentative. Before Emma could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at it, frowning. "It's Katie. She never calls this late." The moment she answered, Katie's panicked voice came through. "Emma, turn on the news. Channel 7. Blake watched Emma's expression transform from confusion to horror as she fumbled with her keys, rushing inside. He followed, concern overriding propriety, as Emma turned on her small television. There on the screen was Blake's face next to hers, captured leaving the ramen shop. The headline scrolled beneath, "Billionaire Blake Alexander's New Conquest Mystery Woman Unveiled." Emma stared at the television in horror. The reporter's voice droned on about Blake's notorious dating history and speculated about his latest fling with the unassuming librarian. They had footage of them walking, laughing, and even a moment when Blake had gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that had seemed private and tender in the moment, now dissected for entertainment. "I have to go," Blake said, immediately pulling out his phone. "I'll fix this." "Fix this?" Emma echoed, her voice hollow. "How exactly do you fix a national news story?" "I have a PR team, Emma. This isn't the first time." "That's exactly the problem," Emma cut him off, wrapping her arms around herself. "This isn't the first time for you. This is your world. But it's not mine." She glanced back at the screen where they were now showing photos of his previous relationships. All stunning models and actresses. "I don't belong in that lineup." Blake's expression turned serious. "That's not what this is." "Isn't it?" Emma challenged, a mixture of embarrassment and anger rising within her. "One dinner, and I'm already the punchline to Boston's favorite soap opera." "Emma, please." Her phone began buzzing incessantly, messages from co-workers, distant friends, even her father who rarely texted. A particularly awful thought struck her. "Oh God, the library board, if they see this..." "They can't fire you for having dinner with someone," Blake argued. "You don't understand." Emma's voice cracked. "I'm up for the director position. The why? Board votes next week. They're all about maintaining the library's dignified image." She scrolled through her notifications with growing dread. "And now I'm Billionaire's bookish booty call on TMZ." Blake ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Let me make some calls. I can have this contained by morning." "Contained?" Emma's laugh was bitter. "My life isn't one of your PR problems to manage, Blake. This is exactly why I said no in the first place." The hurt in his eyes was unmistakable, but Emma was too overwhelmed to care. Her carefully constructed world was unraveling on primetime television. "I think you should go," she said quietly. "Emma, please," she insisted, opening her door. "I need space to figure out how to deal with this." Reluctantly, Blake moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, tonight was real. For me. More real than anything has been in a long time." After he left, Emma sank onto her couch, phone still buzzing relentlessly. She turned it off completely but couldn't escape the thoughts racing through her mind. Tonight had been perfect. Until reality intruded. Blake's reality. A world where privacy was a luxury he hadn't enjoyed in years. The next morning brought no relief. Emma trudged to work, hood pulled up, sunglasses on despite the cloudy day. She'd barely reached her office when Olivia burst in, tablet in hand. "Have you seen the latest?" Olivia asked breathlessly. "Blake Alexander just gave an impromptu press conference." Emma's stomach dropped. "What?" On the tablet screen, Blake stood outside his corporate headquarters, looking impeccably dressed, yet somehow exhausted. His voice was firm as he addressed the gathered reporters. "My personal life is not public entertainment," he stated. "The woman you've been speculating about is a private citizen who deserves respect. Our relationship is exactly no one's business but our own, and I expect all coverage to cease immediately." A reporter shouted, "Are you confirming you're dating the librarian?" Blake's jaw tightened. "I'm confirming that I value my privacy, and more importantly, hers. This ends now." The video cut to a news anchor. In an unprecedented move, Alexander Industries has threatened legal action against any outlet continuing to publish stories about Blake Alexander's personal relationships, citing privacy laws. Tech industry insiders are speculating this may impact Alexander's upcoming merger talks with. Emma switched off the tablet, her mind reeling. Had Blake just put his business interests at risk for her privacy? Olivia was practically vibrating with excitement. "So it's true? You and Blake Alexander?" "It was one dinner," Emma muttered, slumping into her chair. "One dinner that has the most eligible bachelor in Boston threatening media outlets," Olivia pointed out. "That's not nothing." Before Emma could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Collins, this is Marcus, Mr. Alexander's assistant. He would like to speak with you if you're willing. Please call at your convenience." Attached was a private number. Emma stared at the message, conflicted. Part of her wanted to delete it and pretend the whole whirlwind had never happened. But another part couldn't forget the genuine connection they'd shared over steaming bowls of ramen, or how he'd dried her sister's manuscript page by page. Her office phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Mrs. Harrington, head of the library board. "Emma, dear." The older woman's voice crackled through the line. "The board would like to see you. Now, if possible." Heart sinking, Emma made her way to the boardroom. This was it. The end of her professional aspirations, all because of one dinner. To her surprise, the entire board was present, faces unreadable. Mrs. Harrington gestured for her to sit. "Emma, we've received a rather unusual call this morning," Mrs. Harrington began. "From the mayor's office." Emma blinked. "The mayor?" "Yes. It seems Blake Alexander has offered to triple the library's annual funding, establish a new wing for rare manuscripts, and create a literacy foundation in partnership with us." Mrs. Harrington leaned forward. "Contingent on one condition." "What condition?" Emma asked, though she already suspected. "That we judge the director candidate on her merits alone, without regard to her personal associations." Emma felt a flush of anger. Of course, Blake was trying to buy her way out of trouble, just throwing money at the problem like he did with everything else. "I see," Emma said stiffly. "And what did the board say?" "We said Mr. Alexander's generous offer was appreciated but unnecessary," Mrs. Harrington stated firmly. "We've always intended to judge you on your merits alone, my dear. Though the additional funding is certainly welcome, it doesn't influence our decision. And," added Mr. Peterson, the youngest board member, "we agreed his condition was reasonable. Your private life is your own business." Relief washed over Emma, quickly followed by confusion. Blake had offered the library millions, not to secure her job, but simply to ensure she was judged fairly. As she left the meeting, Emma's phone buzzed again with another text from Marcus. "Mr. Alexander wanted me to clarify he expects nothing in return for his library donation. It was something he'd been considering since the fundraiser last month. Your career and reputation should never suffer because of your association with him." Emma stopped in the middle of the hallway, torn between gratitude and frustration. Blake was making grand gestures, throwing his influence around, but was it to help her? Or to ease his own conscience? And why did part of her wish he would just show up himself instead of sending texts through his assistant? As if in answer to her unspoken question, the library's front doors opened, and Blake Alexander walked in, looking decidedly un-billionaire-like, in jeans and a worn MIT sweatshirt. He carried 2 cups of coffee and wore an expression of uncertainty Emma had never seen in any of his magazine covers. Their eyes met across the lobby, and everything else seemed to fade away. The library atrium fell silent as Blake approached Emma, the morning sunlight streaming through the skylights casting a spotlight on their unexpected reunion. Patrons and staff alike tried to pretend they weren't watching Boston's most famous billionaire nervously holding 2 coffee cups. "You're all over the news," Emma said quietly when he reached her. "Not the first time," Blake replied with a wry smile, offering her one of the coffees. "Oat milk latte with cinnamon. Your sister mentioned it was your favorite." Emma accepted the cup, surprised he'd remembered such a detail. "You talked to Katie?" "She called me, actually. Said you were too stubborn to do it yourself." His blue eyes searched hers. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" Emma led him to the rare manuscripts room, her sanctuary. The room smelled of old paper and wood polish, the kind of scent that money couldn't buy. Blake looked around with genuine appreciation at the climate-controlled displays of literary treasures. "I'm sorry," they both said simultaneously, then laughed, breaking the tension. "You go first," Emma offered. Blake set his coffee down on a reading table. "I'm sorry your privacy was invaded because of me. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from that. But I'm not sorry about our dinner or getting to know you." Emma sighed, running her finger along the edge of an ancient manuscript case. "I'm sorry I panicked. It's just, I've spent my whole life being invisible, Blake. Comfortable, in the background. Then suddenly I'm on national TV being dissected by strangers. I understand," Blake said softly. "More than you know." "Do you?" Emma challenged. "Your life has been public for years." "And I hate every second of it," Blake admitted, surprising her. "The real me, the one who reads classics, who misses working with his hands, who just wanted to build something useful, got buried under billionaire Blake years ago." He moved closer, not touching her, but close enough that Emma could see the genuine emotion in his eyes. "Then I met a woman who argued with me about books, who didn't care about my bank account, who called me on my bullshit. And for the first time in years, I felt like myself again." Emma's resolve weakened. "Blake, I canceled the merger," he interjected. Emma blinked, confused. "What merger?" "With Technovate, the deal I've been working on for 2 years." Blake ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "My board thinks I've lost my mind." "Why would you do that?" "Because they were demanding guarantees about my public image. Stable, predictable, marketable." His voice was bitter. "They had concerns about me dating a normal person instead of the approved celebrity types, said it made me look unsophisticated." Emma's eyes widened. "You canceled a billion-dollar deal because of me?" "No," Blake corrected firmly. "I canceled it because of me. Because I'm tired of letting other people dictate who I can be." He took a deep breath. "But I'd be lying if I said you weren't part of it. You reminded me there's more to life than acquisitions and stock prices." A silence fell between them, heavy with possibility. "The board offered me the director position," Emma said finally. Blake's face lit up. "Emma, that's wonderful." "I haven't accepted yet," she continued. "I needed to talk to you first." "To me? Why?" Emma set her coffee down and met his gaze squarely. "Because if I take it, I need to know if this," she gestured between them, "is something real. Something worth the risk." Blake's expression softened. "Ask me." "Ask you what?" "Whatever you need to know to make your decision." Emma took a deep breath. "If we tried this, really tried, what happens when the novelty wears off? When I'm just Emma the librarian and the challenge is gone?" "The challenge was never the point," Blake said simply. The connection was, and the media circus? Your shareholders' opinions? Let me worry about them. He moved closer. My question is, are you willing to give this a chance? Not the billionaire and the librarian, just Blake and Emma, two people who connected over ramen and books. Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and saw beyond the public persona to the man who had saved her sister's manuscript, who had threatened media outlets to protect her privacy, who stood before her now, vulnerable and hopeful. It won't be easy, she warned. Nothing worth having ever is, Blake replied with a smile. And I won't change who I am, Emma added firmly. No designer makeovers or charity galas every weekend. I wouldn't want you to change, Blake assured her. Your authenticity is what drew me to you in the first place. Emma felt the last of her resistance crumbling. One condition. Name it. We take it slow. Really slow. Blake's smile widened. Does that mean I get a second date? It means, Emma said, stepping closer until they were inches apart, that I'm willing to see where this goes, day by day. Blake reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, just as he had the night before. Only this time, there were no cameras, no audience, just them. I can work with that, he murmured. Their first kiss was nothing like Emma had imagined, not the calculated move of a practiced playboy, but something tentative and sweet, full of promise rather than demand. When they broke apart, both were smiling. So, Blake asked, his forehead resting against hers, what should we do for our second date? Emma laughed. Something normal people do. Mini golf, maybe? I'm terrible at mini golf, Blake confessed. Even better, Emma teased. I'll finally find something you're not good at. I can think of worse ways to spend an evening than being humiliated at mini golf by the new library director, Blake said, his eyes sparkling. Their moment was interrupted by Blake's phone buzzing, his board no doubt still in crisis mode over his canceled merger. At the same time, Emma noticed Mrs. Harrington hovering near the door, clearly waiting to speak with her. Real-life calls. Emma sighed. Let it wait another minute, Blake said, pulling her close again. 6 months later, the tabloids still occasionally featured photos of Boston's most unlikely power couple, the billionaire and the librarian. They captured Blake carrying stacks of books at library fundraisers, Emma reluctantly attending tech conferences, albeit in her own comfortable style, and the two of them regularly eating at a certain hidden ramen shop. What the cameras missed were the quiet moments, Blake reading manuscripts for Katie, who was now working with a publisher, Emma challenging Blake's workaholic tendencies and bringing balance to his life, their Sunday morning ritual of coffee and crosswords in her small apartment, which he preferred to his penthouse. In the end, Emma Collins, who had once been certain that men like Blake Alexander were nothing but trouble, found herself happily proven wrong. And Blake, who had spent years surrounding himself with people who wanted something from him, discovered that what he'd really been searching for was someone who simply wanted him, just him, not the empire he'd built. And that, it turned out, was worth all the risk in the world. The first crack of thunder split the sky like a gunshot, sending a murder of crows erupting from the ancient jacaranda tree that had stood sentinel over the Ribeiro farm for 3 generations. Elena Ribeiro, 17 years old with eyes the color of Brazilian coffee beans, stood frozen in the doorway of her family's weathered farmhouse, clutching a manila envelope that felt heavier than the storm clouds gathering overhead. "Elena, minha filha, please understand." Miguel Ribeiro's voice cracked like dry leather, his calloused hands trembling as he reached for his daughter. The man who had once carried 100-pound coffee sacks on his shoulders now couldn't bear the weight of his own shame. "Don't!" Elena's scream tore through the humid afternoon air. "Don't you dare call me your daughter!" She thrust the papers toward him, her hands shaking with rage. "You sold me to Augusto Mantovani, the man they call the Widowmaker." Inside the house, a weak cough echoed from the master bedroom. Elena's fury momentarily wavered as she glanced toward the sound. Her mother, Gabriela, fighting stage 4 lymphoma, with the determination of a woman who had worked the coffee fields since she was 12. Miguel's weathered face crumpled. "The treatments, Elena. Hospital San Lucas wants 500,000 reais up front. Your mother has days, maybe a week. Mantovani," he offered. His voice trailed off, unable to finish the sentence that had condemned his daughter. "My freedom for her life," Elena whispered, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. The distant rumble of engines interrupted their confrontation. A convoy of obsidian Mercedes-Benz vehicles materialized through the coffee plants like mechanical predators, their pristine paint jobs an obscene contrast to the red earth that had sustained the Ribeiro family for generations. From the lead vehicle emerged Augusto Mantovani himself, 6 feet of calculated menace wrapped in a Tom Ford suit that cost more than the Ribeiro farm's annual harvest. At 62, his silver hair was immaculately groomed, his face carved from marble and cruelty. 3 wedding rings adorned a chain around his neck, trophies from his previous marriages, all of which had ended in tragedy. "Miss Ribeiro," Mantovani's voice slithered through the humid air like a venomous snake. His pale blue eyes, lifeless as a doll's, appraised her with clinical detachment. "Your photographs didn't do you justice. Though I see you've inherited your mother's fire." He paused, savoring the word. "I do so enjoy taming wild things." Elena straightened her spine, meeting his gaze with defiance that made her father flinch. "I am not a thing to be tamed, Senor Mantovani." A smile played at the corners of his thin lips, the expression of a cat toying with a mouse. "Not yet, my dear. But in 3 days' time at the Cathedral of São Paulo you will become Mrs. Augusto Mantovani. And then—" He let the threat hang in the air like the approaching storm. "Sir?" Miguel stepped forward, hat in hand. "The money. For my wife's treatment." Without looking away from Elena, Mantovani snapped his fingers. A bodyguard, built like a bull and twice as mean, approached with a briefcase. Inside lay neat stacks of Brazilian reais, more money than the Ribeiros had seen in their lifetime. "Consider it a down payment," Mantovani said smoothly. "The remainder will be transferred after the ceremony. Provided, of course, that your daughter proves satisfactory." Elena's stomach churned. She thought of her mother, pale and withering in the bedroom, unaware that her only child was being bartered like livestock at a country fair. She thought of her dreams, university in Rio, studying marine biology, falling in love with someone who saw her as more than a beautiful possession. "I need to say goodbye to my mother," Elena said, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. Mantovani checked his Patek Philippe watch, a timepiece worth more than most Brazilians earned in a decade. 5 minutes, then we leave for São Paulo. Your new life awaits." Elena rushed to her mother's bedside. Gabriela Ribeiro, once vibrant and strong, now resembled a faded photograph of herself. Her eyes, still sharp despite the morphine, locked onto her daughter's face. "Elena, what's happening? I heard shouting." Elena forced a smile, the greatest performance of her young life. "Nothing, Mai. I'm going to the city for a while. For work. Papa found me a good position." Gabriella's frail hand found Elena's. "You're lying, Mina Pequena. A mother always knows." Tears finally broke through Elena's facade. "I love you, Mai, more than all the stars in the sky. And I love you more than all the coffee beans in Brazil," Gabriella whispered back. Their special saying since Elena was small. Outside, Mantovani's driver honked impatiently. Elena kissed her mother's forehead, memorizing the scent of jasmine soap and sickness, love and impending loss. As she was escorted to the waiting Mercedes, Elena caught sight of her reflection in the tinted window, a young woman in a simple white cotton dress about to enter a world of silk and shadows. The first drops of rain began to fall, mixing with her tears. Inside the car, Mantovani sat reading financial reports on his tablet, as casual as if he'd just purchased stocks rather than a human being. "Your room at the mansion is prepared," he said without looking up. "Tomorrow we'll visit Valentino for your wedding dress. Something virginal, I think. White lace, pearls. The media loves a fairy tale." Elena stared out the window as her childhood home disappeared behind curtains of rain. Her father stood in the muddy yard, the briefcase of blood money clutched to his chest, looking like a man who had just made a deal with the devil himself. The radio played softly, Maria Bethania crooning about love and loss. As the convoy wound through the mountains toward São Paulo, Elena made a silent vow. She would survive Augusto Mantovani. She would endure whatever cruelties awaited her in his gilded cage, but she would never, ever let him break her spirit. Thunder crashed overhead, and somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolled, counting down the hours to a wedding that would be anything but holy. In her pocket, Elena's fingers closed around a small object, her grandmother's rosary, passed down through generations of Ribeiro women. Each bead felt like a prayer, a hope, a rebellion against the fate that had been chosen for her. The storm intensified as they drove on, rain lashing the windows like tears from heaven itself. And in the back seat of that luxury car, speeding toward a destiny she never chose, Elena Ribeiro began to plan her survival in a world where love was currency and marriage was a death sentence. Little did she know that within Mantovani's mansion waited secrets darker than she could imagine, and that her sacrifice would unleash consequences that would shake the foundations of one of Brazil's most powerful families. As the lights of São Paulo glittered on the horizon like fallen stars, Elena whispered a promise to herself and to her dying mother. "I will not be another trophy on his chain. I will not be another ghost in his gallery of dead wives." But promises, like hearts, are fragile things in the hands of cruel men. The Mantovani mansion rose from Morumbi's hills like a monument to excess, a 30,000 square foot testament to pharmaceutical fortune built on other people's suffering. As the Mercedes approached the gates, Elena counted security cameras like a prisoner memorizing guard rotations, 16 visible, God knew how many hidden. "Welcome home, Mrs. Mantovani," the chauffeur announced prematurely, his eyes avoiding the rearview mirror. Elena's throat constricted. Mrs. Mantovani. In 2 days, that would be her name, her identity erased like chalk from a blackboard. The mansion's doors opened to reveal Dona Lucrecia, the head housekeeper, a woman whose severe black dress and silver crucifix couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. "Señorita Ribeiro," she whispered, crossing herself quickly. "Your room is prepared. 3rd floor, east wing." "The same wing where my previous wives stayed," Augusto interjected smoothly, appearing behind Elena like a shadow, "though they've all been redecorated since their departures." Elena followed Dona Lucrecia up a marble staircase that seemed designed to make visitors feel small. Family portraits lined the walls, 3 beautiful young women, each captured in bridal white, their eyes holding the same expression Elena had seen in Trapped Animals. "Natalia, Beatriz, and Isadora," Augusto narrated from behind. "My former wives. Tragic losses, all of them. Natalia drowned in our pool. She never was a strong swimmer. Beatriz fell from the balcony, always was clumsy after wine. And poor Isadora." Her heart simply stopped. The doctors called it sudden arrhythmic death syndrome. Mysterious condition. Elena's fingers tightened on the banister. Each explanation sounded rehearsed like lines from a play performed too many times. Her room was a gilded prison. Crystal chandeliers, Persian rugs, a 4-poster bed that could sleep 6. But the windows had bars disguised as decorative ironwork, and the door locked from the outside. "Dinner is at 8, Donna Lucretia murmured, unpacking Elena's meager suitcase. "The master likes punctuality. And—" She hesitated, glancing at the door. "Never refuse his wine." "Why?" Elena asked. "Because refusing makes him angry. And when he's angry—" The housekeeper's hand unconsciously touched a faded bruise on her wrist. Alone, Elena explored her cage. The bathroom held enough designer cosmetics to stock a department store. The closet contained dozens of dresses, all in her exact size. Augusto had been planning this acquisition for longer than she'd imagined. Her exploration was interrupted by a knock. A young maid entered, no more than 15, with terrified eyes. "I'm Marcia," she whispered. "I'm assigned to you. If you need anything—" "How long have you worked here?" "6 months. Since my sister—" Marcia stopped, color draining from her face. "Your sister?" "She worked here too. Before she left suddenly. Please, senorita, don't ask questions, it's safer." At dinner, Elena met the inner circle of Augusto's empire. His son Ricardo, 40, with his father's cruel eyes but none of his charm. His business partner, Dr. Helio Vasconcelos, a man whose medical license had been revoked in 3 countries. And Augusto's personal lawyer, Silvana Torres, a woman who handled both corporate acquisitions and personal complications. To young love, Dr. Vasconcelos raised his glass, his smile not reaching his eyes. "May it last longer than usual." Ricardo snorted into his wine. Silvana shot him a warning look. The conversation revolved around pharmaceutical patents, offshore accounts, and congressional bribes. Elena pushed her food around her plate, each bite tasting like ash. "Not hungry, my dear?" Augusto asked. "Wedding nerves, perhaps?" "Just tired from the journey." "Then let me show you the gardens. The night-blooming jasmine is particularly lovely." The gardens were beautiful and isolated, perfect for private conversations or violence. "Your father is an interesting man," Augusto said, leading her deeper into the maze of hedges. "Did you know he once killed a man?" Elena froze. "What?" 20 years ago. A dispute over water rights. The other farmer threatened your mother. Miguel shot him. Self-defense, of course. The police never investigated. Amazing what a small bribe could accomplish back then. "You're lying." "Am I?" Ask yourself, what kind of man sells his daughter to save his wife? A desperate one, or one who's already crossed moral lines? They reached a fountain, a marble angel weeping eternal tears. In the moonlight, it looked like blood. "Here's what will happen, Elena. We'll marry Saturday. You'll smile for the cameras, share my bed, give me an heir, preferably male. And if you're very, very good, your mother will live. Cross me and—" He pulled out his phone, showing a live feed of her mother's hospital room. Amazing what money can buy, including the power to give life, or take it. Elena's knees buckled. Augusto caught her, his grip iron strong. "I own judges, police chiefs, senators. I've destroyed men more powerful than your father. But you—" His fingers traced her jawline. "You're special. So young, so pure, so breakable." A scream echoed from the mansion. Augusto checked his watch, unfazed. Ah, Ricardo's disciplining one of the staff. Theft, probably, or asking too many questions. Back in her room, Elena found Marcia waiting with a first aid kit and haunted eyes. "Let me guess, your hand slipped?" Marcia nodded, tears streaming silently. "What happened to your sister?" "She was pretty, like you," the master noticed. "Then, one day, gone. They said she ran away. But she left everything behind, even her daughter's picture. As Marcia tended to her own wounds, Elena noticed marks on the maid's arms, precise, clinical cuts. "The doctor," Marcia whispered. "He likes to experiment, says it's for science." That night, Elena stood at her barred window, looking out over São Paulo's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, her father was spending blood money. Her mother was fighting for every breath. And she was trapped in a mansion full of monsters. Her phone, confiscated upon arrival, had been replaced with one that could only call approved numbers. The internet was restricted. Every door had cameras. Every conversation was likely recorded. But Elena had something her predecessors hadn't. She'd grown up tough, working the fields, learning to read weather patterns and human nature. She knew how to survive. Carefully, she began mapping the house in her mind. Security patterns, staff, schedules. Which employees were loyal to Augusto, which were terrified of him. Information was power, and she'd need every scrap to survive. A soft knock interrupted her planning. Donna Lucretia entered with a tea service. "Chamomile," she said. "With honey. It helps with sleep." As she poured, she slipped Elena a note. "Trust no one. The walls have ears. Your only friend here is silence." After the housekeeper left, Elena examined her room more carefully. Hidden cameras in the air vents, microphones in the light fixtures. Her prison was complete. But then she noticed something else, scratches on the bedpost. Words carved by desperate fingernails. "He watches. He waits. He kills." Below it, in different handwriting, "Find the red journal." And below that, freshest of all, "Don't drink the wine." Elena touched each message, feeling the desperation of the women who came before. 3 dead wives, 3 warnings. Outside, an owl hooted, a sound her grandmother always said meant death was near. Elena pulled out her grandmother's rosary and began to pray. Not for salvation, she knew none was coming, but for strength, for cunning, for the ability to survive where others had fallen. Tomorrow she would begin her performance. The dutiful fiancé, the grateful rescue from poverty, the lamb among wolves. But lambs grow teeth when cornered, and Elena Ribeiro was nobody's prey. As she lay in bed, pretending to sleep, she heard footsteps in the hallway. They paused outside her door. The handle turned slowly, testing, watching, waiting. The footsteps retreated, but Elena knew her ordeal was just beginning. In her dreams that night, 3 women in wedding dresses stood at the foot of her bed, their faces pale as moonlight. Their warnings clear. "Find the journal, don't trust the wine. Never let him see you break. Survive." The Cathedral of São Paulo stood against the morning sky like a Gothic accusation, its spires piercing clouds that threatened rain. Elena sat before an ornate vanity in the bridal suite, watching makeup. Artists transform her into Augusto Mantovani's 4th wife, and potentially his 4th victim. "Hold still," commanded Valentina, the head stylist, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the veil. The master likes perfection. In the mirror, Elena barely recognized herself. The Valentino dress, a creation of ivory silk and Alençon lace worth more than her family's farm, transformed her from a coffee farmer's daughter into a billionaire's trophy. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant chignon, secured with diamond, pins that felt like tiny shackles. "You're beautiful," whispered Marcia, who had been assigned as her personal attendant. The young maid slipped something into Elena's bouquet, a small red leather journal weathered with age. "Isadora's diary," Marcia breathed. "I found it hidden in the library. Read it when you're alone. Know the truth." Before Elena could respond, the door burst open. Ricardo Mantovani entered, already drunk despite the early hour. "Well, well, wife number 4. His eyes raked over her with undisguised contempt. "I give you 6 months. Natalia lasted 8. Beatrice made it to 10. Isadora," he laughed bitterly. 13 months, unlucky number. "Ricardo," Silvana Torres, the lawyer, appeared behind him. "Your father wants you downstairs now." After he left, Silvana approached Elena. "A word of advice, child. Sign the prenuptial agreement without reading it. Ask no questions. Have no opinions. And maybe, you'll see your next birthday." The organ music began. Bach's Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, twisted into something funereal by the cathedral's acoustics. Elena stood on shaking legs, clutching her bouquet like a shield. "It's time," Donna Lucretia announced, crossing herself. The walk down the aisle felt endless. 500 of São Paulo's elite filled the pews: politicians, pharmaceutical executives, society matrons. All watched her with expressions ranging from pity to morbid curiosity. How long would this one last? Augusto waited at the altar, resplendent in a bespoke tuxedo, his smile that of a spider watching a fly enter its web. Beside him stood Dr. Vasconcelos as best man, a choice that sent whispers through the crowd. As Elena approached, she noticed details others might miss: the slight discoloration on the altar cloth, old bloodstains, the way certain guests avoided eye contact, the security guards positioned at every exit. "Dearly beloved," the Archbishop began, his voice carrying the weight of authority and complicity. Elena wondered how much he'd been paid to officiate this farce. The ceremony proceeded like a death march. When asked if anyone objected, the silence was deafening. Elena's eyes found the stained glass windows, Saint Sebastian pierced by arrows, Saint Lucy carrying her own eyes on a plate, saints who suffered. "Do you, Elena Ribeiro, take this man?" Thunder cracked outside. Several guests crossed themselves. "I do," Elena whispered, sealing her fate. "You may kiss the bride." Augusto's kiss was possessive, crushing. The crowd applauded as if watching a performance. Perhaps they were. At the reception, held in the mansion's ballroom, Elena played her part flawlessly. She smiled for photographers, danced with dignitaries, and pretended not to notice the betting pool among the guests about her life expectancy. During the father-daughter dance, Miguel Ribeiro could barely meet her eyes. "Your mother's responding to treatment," he mumbled. "The doctors say—" "Don't," Elena cut him off. "Don't try to justify this." "Elena, I had no choice." "There's always a choice, Papa. You chose her life over mine." The music ended. Miguel retreated to his table, where he proceeded to drink himself into oblivion. As the evening wore on, Elena noticed strange occurrences. Servants whispered urgently in corners. Dr. Vasconcelos kept checking his watch. Ricardo made frequent trips to the garden, returning more agitated each time. During a lull, Elena slipped away to the powder room. Locked inside a stall, she opened Isidora's journal. March 15th. "He's getting worse. The experiments in the basement, the drugs he forces me to take. I found Beatrice's autopsy report, falsified. She didn't fall, she was pushed. April 2nd. I'm being poisoned. Small doses, untraceable. The wine at dinner, always the wine. Dr. Vasconcelos calls it cardiac glycosides, says it mimics heart failure. April 20th. If anyone finds this, know the truth. There's a room behind the library, proof of everything. The real autopsy reports, photos, his first wife, before Natalia, Maria Fernanda. She disappeared in 1995. She's still here, in the walls." Elena's hands shook. In the walls? A knock startled her. "Senora? The cake cutting?" She returned to find Augusto waiting with a champagne flute. "A toast to my beautiful bride." The wine. Always the wine. Elena pretended to sip, then accidentally spilled it on her dress. "How clumsy of me." Augusto's eyes narrowed. Indeed. As the guests departed, gifting envelopes thick with cash, blood money disguised as wedding presents, Elena steeled herself for what came next. The honeymoon suite had been prepared with obscene luxury. Rose petals covered silk sheets, candles, flickered like funeral pyres. Champagne chilled in silver buckets. "Drink," Augusto commanded, pouring 2 glasses. "I've had enough wine tonight." His hand tightened on the bottle. "I insist." "Actually," Elena said, thinking quickly, "I have a surprise for you. A special wine from my family's personal collection. Very rare. I've been saving it for my wedding night." Greed flickered in Augusto's eyes. He was a connoisseur, after all. "Show me." Elena retrieved a bottle from her luggage, a simple countryside wine her father made. Nothing special, but Augusto didn't know that. She poured 2 glasses, making sure to give him the fuller one. As he examined the label, she switched the glasses with practiced sleight of hand, a trick learned from her mischievous cousin. "To us," she toasted. They drank. Augusto savored the wine, pronouncing it surprisingly complex for peasant vintage. Within minutes, his eyes grew heavy. What did you—" "Nothing," Elena said truthfully. "You've poisoned yourself. With your own wine." He collapsed onto the bed, unconscious but breathing. The wine meant for her, laced with sedatives, the first step in whatever sick plan he'd devised, had found its intended victim. Elena worked quickly. She found his keys, his phone, his private documents. In his jacket pocket, a vial of clear liquid labeled only with chemical formulas. She photographed everything. Then she searched the room, finding what she dreaded: hidden cameras. Their wedding night was to be recorded. For his private collection? Blackmail? Or worse, using nail scissors, she cut the wires. Outside, footsteps approached. Ricardo's voice. "Father, the doctor's here for the examination." Examination? On their wedding night? Elena draped herself across Augusto's unconscious form, arranging her dress suggestively. When Ricardo entered with Dr. Vasconcelos, she affected drowsiness. "He's asleep," she murmured. Very enthusiastic, then suddenly tired. "Is that normal for men his age?" Ricardo's face darkened. The doctor checked. Augusto's pulse frowned at the wine glasses. Which glass was his? "I don't remember. Does it matter?" The 2 men exchanged looks. "No," Dr. Vasconcelos said finally. "Just ensure he rests. We'll postpone the examination." After they left, Elena barricaded the door. She had bought herself one night. Tomorrow Augusto would wake. He would know she'd outsmarted him, and then the real game would begin. She opened Isadora's journal again, reading by moonlight. "If you're reading this, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. But maybe you can last longer than I did. Be smarter." The gardener, Tomas, he helped sometimes. The young priest at São Benedito, Father Antonio, he knows the truth. And the walls, listen to the walls. The dead speak if you know how to hear. Elena pressed her ear against the wall. At first, nothing. Then, scratching, whispers, or just wind in the old pipes. Outside her window, the owl hooted again. 3 times. Her grandmother always said that meant. A scream shattered the night. Not from outside, from within the walls themselves. A woman's voice, crying a name. Maria Fernanda. Elena jerked away from the wall, heart racing. The first wife, the one who disappeared. In the corner of her vision, something moved. A shadow? A trick of moonlight? When she looked directly, nothing was there. But on the wall, written in what looked disturbingly like blood, were 2 words. "Help us." Elena sank to her knees, clutching the rosary. She had survived her wedding night. But in this house of horrors, where dead wives whispered from the walls and every glass of wine could be your last, survival was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring Augusto's rage, Dr. Vasconcelos's experiments, Ricardo's drunken violence, and somewhere in this mansion, evidence that could destroy them all if she lived long enough to find it. Elena Mantovani, née Ribeiro, closed her eyes and made a new vow. She would not be victim number 4. She would be their reckoning, even if it killed her. Dawn broke blood red over São Paulo, painting the Mantovani mansion in shades of warning. Elena stood at her barricaded door, listening to Augusto's rage echo through the halls as he discovered her deception. "Find her!" His roar shook the portraits on the walls. No one makes a fool of Augusto Mantovani. Elena had spent the night following Isidora's clues. Behind a false panel in the library, she'd found it all. Autopsy reports revealing arsenic poisoning, photographs of torture sessions in the basement, financial records of bribes to officials, and most damning, a VHS tape labeled Maria Fernanda, 1995. She'd watched it once. Once was enough. The screams would haunt her forever. Now, clutching a flash drive containing digitized evidence, Elena crept through servant passages. Marcia had shown her. Her destination, Father Antonio at San Benedito Church. If she could just reach him. Elena, Augusto's voice, sickeningly sweet now, drifted up the stairs. "My darling bride, come out. We need to talk about last night's misunderstanding." She pressed herself against the wall as footsteps approached. Ricardo and 2 security guards passed inches from her hiding spot. "Check the basement," Ricardo ordered. She might have found the room. The room where Dr. Vasconcelos conducted his experiments, where wives became test subjects for untraceable poisons, where Maria Fernanda had died screaming, her body never found. Until Elena discovered the truth in Isidora's journal. She's still here, in the walls. The mansion's original blueprints revealed spaces between walls, old servant passages, long sealed, perfect for hiding bodies. A hand grabbed Elena's shoulder. She spun, ready to fight, then sagged with relief. "Tomas!" The elderly gardener, face weathered by sun and secrets, pressed a finger to his lips. "This way, quickly." He led her through a maze of passages to a service exit. Outside, his battered truck waited. "The church," Elena whispered. "I have evidence." Tomas shook his head sadly. "Father Antonio is dead. Car accident. Last night, after the wedding." Elena's knees buckled. Another murder disguised as coincidence. Then the police. "Commissioner Batista was at your wedding, Senora, shaking hands with your husband. Trapped. Every exit blocked. Every ally eliminated." "There's one person," Tomas said quietly. "A journalist. Marina Santos. She's been investigating the Mantovanis for years. Lost her sister to them. She worked here as a maid. Disappeared like the others." He handed Elena a burner phone. "Her number's programmed. But Senora..." His eyes filled with tears. "They'll kill us all for this." "They're killing us anyway," Elena replied. "Just slowly." The truck wouldn't start. Tomas tried again. Nothing. Through the windshield, Elena saw them coming. Ricardo, Dr. Vasconcelos, and Augusto himself, still in his wedding clothes, face twisted with fury. "Run," Tomas urged. "I'll hold them." The gunshot cut him off. Ricardo lowered his pistol, smirking as the old gardener crumpled. Elena ran. Behind her, Augusto's laughter echoed. "Run, little rabbit. The hunt is the best part." She reached the mansion's east wing, barricading herself in the music room. Her fingers flew over the burner phone, calling Marina Santos. "Please," she gasped when a woman answered. "I have evidence. The Mantovani murders. Everything." "Where are you?" "Trapped in the mansion. They're coming." The line went dead. They'd cut the cell towers. Footsteps in the hallway. Augusto's voice, sing-song and mocking. "Elena, my love, you can't hide forever." She grabbed a letter opener from the desk. Pitiful defense against guns, but better than nothing. The door splintered. Ricardo burst in, wild-eyed and drunk. "Got you now, stepmother." He advanced, pulling a syringe from his pocket. "Father says it's time for your medicine." Elena slashed with the letter opener, catching his cheek. Blood sprayed. Ricardo howled, stumbling back. She ran again, upstairs, down corridors, the mansion becoming a labyrinth of terror. Behind her, the hunt continued. In the attic, she found them, the wives, their perfume bottles, jewelry, photos. A shrine to Augusto's victims, and something else, a laptop still logged into Augusto's email. With shaking hands, Elena attached the flash drive and began uploading everything to multiple news outlets, the federal police, international authorities. The progress bar crept forward, 50%, 60%. Found you. Augusto stood in the doorway, no longer bothering with pretense. In his hand, a revolver. You've been very clever, Elena. Cleverer than the others. I almost admire. It's over, she said, gesturing to the laptop. Everyone will know. He smiled. You think you're the first to try? Marina Santos's sister gathered evidence too, as did a federal agent, a private investigator. All accidents, all tragedies. Money doesn't just buy silence, my dear. It buys reality itself. 75%, 80%. But you're special, Elena. You survived the wine. Outsmarted Ricardo. Found my secrets. So, I'll offer you a choice. He set a familiar bottle on the table. The poisoned wine. Drink it yourself, die peacefully. I'll spare your parents. Your mother gets her treatment. Your father keeps his farm. You'll be just another tragic young bride, overwhelmed by her new life. 85%, 90%. Or refuse and watch them die slowly. Your mother's treatment stops today. Your father has an accident next week. Everyone you love suffers because you had to be a hero. Elena's hand hovered over the bottle. Behind Augusto, she saw them, shadows of dead women. Natalia, Beatriz, Isadora. And deeper in the darkness, Maria Fernanda herself, her face a ruin of decay. Fight, they seemed to whisper. Make it count. 95%. You know what's funny? Elena said, uncorking the bottle. You think you're the monster in this story. She raised the wine to her lips. But monsters don't win against love. Instead of drinking, she threw the wine in Augusto's face. As he screamed, the liquid burning his eyes, she grabbed the laptop. Upload complete. Augusto fired blindly. Pain exploded in Elena's shoulder, but she kept moving. Down the attic. Stairs through smoke-filled corridors. When had the fire started? In the entrance hall, chaos reigned. Servants fled. Flames licked the walls. And outside, sirens wailed. Police, fire trucks, media vans. Marina Santos had come through. Ricardo appeared, blocking the door. You're not leaving alive. Behind Elena, Augusto descended the stairs, one eye destroyed by the wine, the other mad with rage. Trapped between father and son, Elena made her choice. She ran toward the flames. The fire had reached the east wing, the walls where Maria Fernanda was buried. As Elena passed, the old wood groaned and split. Through the gap, a skeletal hand reached out, wedding ring still gleaming. The dead wives had their vengeance. The ceiling collapsed. Ricardo vanished beneath burning timbers. Augusto's screams turned to gurgles as smoke filled his lungs. Elena stumbled outside, dress in flames, shoulder bleeding, but alive. Firefighters rushed forward. Cameras flashed. Marina Santos pushed through the crowd. The evidence? The journalist asked. Uploaded. Everything. Elena collapsed into waiting arms. It's over. But it wasn't. Not quite. 3 days later, as Elena sat beside her mother's hospital bed, treatment fully paid by anonymous donors touched by her story, news broke that Dr. Vasconcelos had been found dead in his cell. Apparent suicide. Commissioner Batista resigned, in disgrace. Senators fell. An empire of corruption crumbled. And Elena? She testified at countless hearings, wrote a book, started a foundation for abuse survivors. But late at night, she still heard them, whispers in the walls. Not of her, Apartment, but in her dreams. The dead wives finally at peace yet forever present. On the anniversary of the fire, Elena visited the ruins of the Mantovani mansion. Where the music room had been, white lilies grew, Isadora's favorite flower. She left her wedding ring among the ashes and walked away. Some cages, once escaped, should never be revisited. Some stories once ended should never be retold. Some monsters once slain still haunt the dark. But Elena Ribeiro, survivor, warrior, breaker of chains, had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the price of salvation is everything you were, burned away to reveal everything you could become. In the distance, an owl hooted 3 times. This time it didn't mean death. It meant rebirth. The end. Look at Camden's shoes, they're falling apart. 10-year-old Camden Blackwood froze as laughter erupted around him. His gaze dropped to his worn-out sneakers, the duct tape he'd carefully applied that morning now peeling away to reveal a gaping hole. The pristine marble floors of Westfield Academy seemed to magnify his inadequacy as his classmates circled him like sharks sensing blood. "My father says your family is living on charity," jeered Oliver Prescott, the ringleader of the pack. "He says your scholarship is just a handout because the school feels sorry for you." Camden's ears burned hot with shame. His threadbare uniform, a hand-me-down 3 sizes too large, hung off his skinny frame, a constant reminder that he didn't belong among the children of Manhattan's elite. "Leave me alone," Camden muttered, clutching his second-hand textbooks tighter against his chest. "Or what? You'll call your father? Oh, wait." Oliver's voice dripped with mock sympathy. "He's too busy being nobody." Something snapped inside Camden. The books tumbled from his arms as he lunged at Oliver, his fist connecting with the boy's perfectly straight nose. Warm blood splattered across the marble floor. "Camden Blackwood!" The headmaster's voice boomed through the hallway. "My office. Now, 15 years later. Mr. Blackwood, your 9 a.m. is here." Camden Blackwood didn't look up from the financial reports spread across his massive glass desk. At 35, he'd transformed from that desperate scholarship kid into New York's most ruthless business tycoon. His corner office on the 92nd floor of the Blackwood Tower offered a panoramic view of the city he now owned piece by piece. "Tell Oliver Prescott I'll see him when I'm ready," Camden replied, his voice as cold as the steel beams supporting his empire. "Let him wait." "Yes, sir," his assistant replied, retreating silently. Camden allowed himself a thin smile. Oliver Prescott, once the golden child of Manhattan society, was now on the verge of bankruptcy, coming to beg for a job from the boy whose shoes he had once mocked. Camden had spent 15 years methodically acquiring companies, properties, and power, all building toward moments like this. His phone buzzed. Without looking, he knew it would be another executive at Blackwood Enterprises requesting an extension on an impossible deadline. Camden had earned his nickname, the Executioner, by showing no mercy, whether to competitors or his own employees. "Blackwood," he answered curtly. "Camden, listen," came the desperate voice of his CFO. "The Wellington merger team needs more time. They've been working 20-hour days for weeks." "Then they should work 22, Camden interrupted. "The Wellington acquisition closes Friday. If your team can't handle it, I'll find people who can." He ended the call without waiting for a response. Rising from his chair, Camden adjusted his bespoke Tom Ford suit, a far cry from the oversized hand-me-downs of his youth. He approached the floor-to-ceiling windows surveying the city below. Each glittering skyscraper represented another piece of his revenge against a world that had once dismissed him. The intercom buzzed again. "Sir, there's also a young woman here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she insists on seeing you. A Ms. Luna Morales?" Camden frowned. The name meant nothing to him. "Tell her to make an appointment like everyone else. Sir, she's quite persistent. She says it's personal and urgent." Camden despised disruptions to his meticulously planned schedule. "Fine, 5 minutes. Then escort Oliver in." The door opened, and Camden turned, expecting to dismiss this intrusion quickly. Instead, he found himself facing a petite woman with fierce dark eyes and wild curls barely contained in a messy bun. Her clothing, a faded denim jacket over a waitress uniform, was jarringly out of place against the minimalist luxury of his office. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, her chin tilted defiantly upward to meet his gaze. "You probably don't remember me, but 3 months ago you hosted a charity gala at the Platinum Room. I was your server." Camden's expression remained impassive. He didn't waste mental space remembering service staff. "I see," he replied flatly. "And you're here because—" Luna Morales took a deep breath, her hands unconsciously moving to rest on her stomach in a protective gesture that Camden didn't miss. "I'm here because I'm pregnant," she announced, her voice steady despite the bomb she was dropping. And you're the father. Camden Blackwood, the man New York business magazines called the Iceman, felt his carefully constructed world tilt on its axis. Pregnant? Camden's voice was barely audible. For the first time in years, he found himself genuinely stunned. That's impossible. Luna Morales raised an eyebrow. The doctor and 3 pregnancy tests disagree with you. I meant, Camden said, regaining his composure, that I always take precautions. Well, congratulations, Mr. Blackwood. You've managed to defy statistics. Luna's casual tone belied the gravity of the situation. Look, I'm not here to trap you or demand marriage. I just thought you should know. Camden circled his desk, unconsciously putting the barrier between them. How do I know it's mine? The moment the words left his mouth, he regretted them. Luna's face flushed with anger. Because unlike the socialites you usually entertain, I don't make a habit of sleeping with billionaires in coat closets. She turned toward the door. This was a mistake. Wait. Camden wasn't sure why he stopped her. Logic dictated he should let her leave, have his lawyers handle this mess. But something in her fierce dignity struck a chord. Sit down, please. 3 months earlier, Luna Morales balanced 5 champagne flutes on her tray as she weaved through Manhattan's elite at the Children's Hospital charity gala. The irony wasn't lost on her, serving drinks to people who spent more on a single night out than she made in a month, all while she struggled to pay her own mounting medical bills. Another circuit, Morales, barked her supervisor. The East Terrace needs refreshments. Luna nodded, suppressing a wince as pain shot through her lower back. The double shifts were taking their toll. But with her grandmother's Parkinson's medication costs doubling last month, she had no choice. The Platinum Room's East Terrace offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline, the twinkling lights like a carpet of stars below the real ones above. Luna paused for a moment, allowing herself to imagine a different life. One where she wasn't 3 months behind on rent for the cramped Queens apartment she shared with her grandmother and teenage brother. Beautiful, isn't it? Luna startled, nearly dropping her tray. A tall man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo stood beside her, gazing at the skyline. She recognized him immediately from the enormous portrait in the lobby. Camden Blackwood, tonight's host and the owner of the Platinum Room, along with half of Manhattan if rumors were to be believed. Yes, sir. It is. Luna shifted awkwardly, unsure of the protocol for speaking to the boss's boss's boss. I used to look at this view from down there, he said, pointing to a neighborhood in the distance. From a 1-bedroom apartment I shared with my mother. I used to promise her someday we'd be up here instead. His voice carried an unexpected vulnerability that contradicted everything she'd heard about the notorious executioner. Before Luna could respond, a commotion erupted inside. A server had spilled red wine on a guest's designer gown, and the woman's shrieks could be heard even over the orchestra. You clumsy fool, the woman screamed. Do you know how much this Valentino costs? You'll be paying for this with your pathetic salary for the next decade. Luna watched as the young server, a college student named Miguel who had helped her learn the ropes, trembled with fear. The manager was already rushing over, apologies spilling from his lips. Excuse me, Luna said to Blackwood, hurrying inside. It was an accident, Miguel was explaining, his voice shaking. The gentleman stepped backward. I did no such thing, protested the man in question. It doesn't matter how it happened, the manager hissed. You're fired. Leave now. Luna pushed forward. It wasn't his fault. I saw what happened. All eyes turned to her, including Camden Blackwood's, who had followed her inside. The lady bumped into him while taking a selfie, Luna continued, her heart pounding but voice steady. Miguel tried to avoid her, but she spun around suddenly. The woman's face contorted with rage. How dare you? Do you know who I am? Someone who needs to learn basic human decency? Luna suggested before she could stop herself. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The manager looked apoplectic. Ms. Morales, you're fired too, both of you out now. No one is getting fired. Camden Blackwood's authoritative voice cut through the tension. The room fell silent. Accidents happen. The platinum room will cover any cleaning costs, Mrs. Prescott. The woman, apparently Mrs. Prescott, looked like she'd bitten into a lemon. Camden, darling, you can't be serious. Your staff is atrocious. My staff is hardworking and honest. His eyes met Luna's briefly. Two qualities I value above all others. Now I believe the auction is about to begin. The crowd dispersed, the drama forgotten as quickly as it had erupted. Luna released the breath she'd been holding. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood, Miguel whispered before hurrying away. Luna turned to thank her unexpected savior, but found him watching her with an intensity that made her heart skip. Not many people would risk their job for a colleague, he observed. Luna shrugged. Not many billionaires would stand up for their servers. His lips twitched. Touché, he extended his hand. Camden Blackwood. I know who you are, Luna replied, reluctantly shaking it. Luna Morales. Well, Luna Morales, I think you've earned a break. Care to join me for some air? The coat room balcony has a better view than the terrace and fewer socialites taking selfies. Luna knew she should decline. She'd heard the rumors about Blackwood's ruthlessness in business and his string of model girlfriends. But something in his eyes, a flicker of that same vulnerability she'd glimpsed earlier, made her nod. 5 minutes, she agreed. Then I need to get back to work. 5 minutes turned into an hour of surprisingly easy conversation. Camden Blackwood, it turned out, was nothing like his public persona. He spoke of growing up poor, of working 3 jobs to put himself through college, of the small bookstore his mother had once dreamed of opening. What about you? He asked. You don't seem like a career server. Luna laughed. I'm working on my nursing degree. 2 more semesters if I can keep up with tuition payments. Nursing? That's admirable. It's practical. My grandmother raised me after my parents died. She's sick now, Parkinson's. I want to be able to care for her properly. Luna was surprised by her own candor. Something about the intimate darkness of the balcony, the city lights below, made confessions feel natural. When Camden's hand found hers, she didn't pull away. When he leaned in to kiss her, she met him halfway. And when he whispered, "Stay with me tonight," against her lips, she found herself saying yes to something she'd never done before. A one-night stand with a man she barely knew but somehow felt she'd always known. The next morning, she slipped away while he slept, leaving no note, no number. Fairy tales weren't for girls from Queens with dying grandmothers and mountains of debt. That night had been stolen magic, nothing more, until the morning sickness started 3 weeks later. Present day. How's your grandmother? Camden asked quietly. Luna blinked in surprise. You remember that? I remember everything about that night. His eyes held hers. Why didn't you leave your number? Luna laughed, the sound brittle. Because men like you don't date waitresses from Queens, they just sleep with them. I wasn't interested in being your charity case or secret fling. Camden flinched as if she'd struck him. Is that what you think happened? Doesn't matter what happened. What matters is this. She gestured to her stomach. I'm keeping the baby, with or without your involvement. I just thought you had the right to know. Camden walked to the window, his back to her. Luna studied his reflection in the glass, the rigid posture, the clenched jaw. The man the business world feared, who could devastate companies with a single phone call, looked oddly vulnerable against the backdrop of the city he owned. I want a paternity test, he said finally. Luna rose, dignity intact despite the tears threatening to spill. Of course you do. Have your lawyers contact me. She placed a business card on his desk. That's my address and phone number. Good day, Mr. Blackwood. As she reached the door, his voice stopped her again. Luna. She turned, one hand protectively, over her stomach. When the test confirms it's mine, Camden said, his voice oddly rough, I want to be involved, fully involved. Luna's eyes widened. Of all the reactions she'd anticipated, this wasn't one of them. Why? She asked, genuinely bewildered. Camden's gaze drifted to a small framed photo on his desk, the only personal item in the sterile office. A worn photo of a woman with his eyes and smile. "Because," he said quietly, "I know what it's like to grow up with only one parent. And while my mother was everything to me, there were times I—" He stopped, vulnerability vanishing behind his mask of control. "The appointment for the test will be tomorrow. My driver will pick you up." It wasn't quite an answer, but Luna nodded. As she left, Camden Blackwood's assistant gave her a curious look while Oliver Prescott, the man still waiting outside, stared open-mouthed at the waitress emerging from the office of New York's most inaccessible billionaire. Neither noticed the tiny smile playing at the corners of Luna's lips, or the way Camden watched her departure through the glass walls of his empire, his expression unreadable to everyone but her. The black Bentley idled outside Luna's apartment building in Queens, looking as out of place as a peacock in a chicken coop. Neighbors peered through curtains as Luna, wearing her best and only dress, suitable for a doctor's appointment with a billionaire, hurried down the crumbling steps. Camden's driver, a stoic man introduced only as Jones, held the door for her with a nod that revealed nothing of his thoughts about his boss's latest passenger. Luna slid into the butter-soft leather-back seat, half expecting to find Camden there. Instead, she found herself alone with a note on the opposite seat. "Meeting ran late. We'll meet you at the clinic. CB." Of course. She'd been naive to think he'd personally escort her. This was business for him, a potential liability to be verified and managed. The ride to Manhattan was surreal. Luna watched her neighborhood, with its vibrant murals, busy bodegas, and resilient spirit, fade away, replaced by the gleaming towers of wealth and privilege. Two worlds, separated by a bridge and an economic chasm wider than the East River. The clinic wasn't what she expected. No sterile hospital corridors or crowded waiting room. Instead, the Bentley stopped at a discreet brownstone on the Upper East Side with a small brass plaque reading, "Dr. Eleanor Whitman, M.D." Jones opened her door. "Mr. Blackwood is already inside." The interior was elegant but warm, more like a luxury spa than a medical facility. A receptionist greeted Luna by name without asking who she was, and led her to a private room where Camden stood gazing out the window, tension evident in his shoulders. He turned at her entrance, and Luna was struck by how different he looked, in casual clothes. Dark jeans and a simple gray sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but somehow made him seem more human. "You came," he said, as if he'd half expected her to change her mind. "I said I would." Luna removed her coat. "Is this really necessary? The doctor at my clinic already confirmed." "This isn't about not believing you," Camden interrupted. "It's about doing things properly from the start." He hesitated. "Dr. Whitman is the best obstetric specialist in New York. While we're here, she'll do a complete prenatal workup. I've arranged for her to take over your care." Luna bristled. "You had no right." "Good morning." A striking woman in her 50s entered, her warm smile diffusing the tension. "I'm Dr. Whitman. You must be Ms. Morales." Over the next hour, Luna endured the most comprehensive medical examination of her life. Blood drawn, ultrasound performed, medical history taken. Through it all, Camden remained in the room, asking more questions than Luna herself and looking strangely fascinated by the grainy ultrasound image of what currently resembled a lima bean more than a baby. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Whitman finally announced. "You're exactly 12 weeks along, Ms. Morales. The paternity results will take a few days, but—" "That won't be necessary," Camden interrupted, surprising both women. His eyes met Luna's. "I know it's mine." Dr. Whitman tactfully excused herself, leaving them alone with the rhythmic sound of their baby's heartbeat still echoing in the room. "How can you be so sure?" Luna asked quietly. Camden's gaze remained on the frozen ultrasound image. "Because you're not the type to lie about something like this, and because—" He hesitated. "I haven't been with anyone else since that night." Luna tried to mask her surprise. The tabloids regularly linked him to models and actresses. "Don't believe everything you read," he said, correctly interpreting her expression. The Camden Blackwood in those stories is a carefully crafted persona. And which Camden Blackwood is sitting here now? He smiled faintly. "I'm still figuring that out myself." The Bentley ride after the appointment was silent until Camden suddenly instructed Jones to take a detour. "Where are we going?" Luna asked as they turned away from the route to Queens. "There's something I want to show you." 20 minutes later, they pulled up before a modest brownstone in a gentrifying Brooklyn neighborhood. Unlike Camden's gleaming corporate tower, this building had character. Worn stone steps, a small garden struggling to survive between concrete, windows that had witnessed a century of New York life. "What is this place?" Luna asked as Camden led her inside. The answer was immediately obvious. Bookshelves lined every wall of the renovated ground floor, with cozy reading nooks nestled between stacks. The scent of fresh coffee mingled with the distinctive aroma of new and old books. "Blackwood books," Camden said, watching her reaction carefully. "My newest acquisition. It's not open to the public yet." "You bought a bookstore?" Luna ran her fingers along the spines of classic novels lovingly displayed. "I wouldn't have pegged you for a book lover." "My mother was," he replied quietly. "She dreamed of opening a shop like this. She died before she could." Understanding dawned on Luna. The photo on his desk, the wistful way he'd spoken of his mother that night at the gala. "It's beautiful," she said sincerely. "She would have loved it." Something in Camden's expression softened. "There's an apartment upstairs, newly renovated, 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, private rooftop garden." He paused. "I want you to live there." Luna blinked. "Excuse me?" "The bookstore opens next month. It needs a manager." He held up a hand as she began to protest. "Someone passionate about books. Good with people. The job comes with the apartment. Full benefits including complete medical coverage that would include your grandmother." "You investigated me," Luna accused, torn between outrage and incredulity. "Of course I did," Camden replied unapologetically. "You're carrying my child. And this is... what? Your way of controlling the situation? Keeping your pregnant waitress mistress hidden away in your quaint little bookstore project?" Camden's jaw tightened. "This is me offering you a good job and safe housing for our child. Your current apartment has black mold, Luna. Your neighborhood reported 14 violent crimes last month alone. You work double shifts on your feet all day, which Dr. Whitman specifically advised against. How dare you? And your grandmother's medication," he continued relentlessly, "costs $4,300 a month. Your insurance covers less than half. You've been paying the difference with credit cards that are now maxed out, which is why you've been skipping your own medication." Luna's face drained of color. "Have you been spying on me?" "I've been learning about the mother of my child," Camden corrected. "You're drowning, Luna. Let me help you." "In exchange for what?" she demanded. "What's the catch?" Camden ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that humanized him beyond any designer jeans could. "No catch. You get financial security and a safe home. I get to be involved in my child's life. The apartment has a separate entrance. Your life would be your own. Except I'd be living in your property, working in your business. Think of it as co-parenting with benefits," he suggested, a flicker of humor lightening his intensity. Despite herself, Luna laughed. "Has anyone ever told you that you're disturbingly controlling?" "Daily," he admitted, his lips quirking upward, usually followed by far less polite adjectives. Luna wandered through the bookstore, her mind racing. The practical part of her, the part that had struggled to keep her small family afloat since she was 18, recognized the lifeline being offered. Not just for her, but for her grandmother and the baby. "My brother," she said finally. "He's 17. He comes with us." "The apartment has 3 bedrooms," Camden reminded her. "I assumed as much." And I finish my nursing degree, no negotiation on that. I wouldn't dream of it. Camden approached her, stopping a respectful distance away. Is that a yes? Luna studied him, the man the business world feared, offering her a bookstore because of a childhood dream his mother never realized. There were layers to Camden Blackwood that the world never saw, layers she'd glimpsed that night at the gala. I'll think about it, she answered carefully. Camden nodded, accepting this non-answer with surprising grace. The offer has no expiration date. As they left the bookstore, Camden's phone rang. His expression darkened as he checked the screen. Blackwood, he answered, his voice instantly transforming into the cold tone she remembered from his office. The Wellington. Deal was supposed to close today, Harrison. A pause. Unacceptable. If their lawyers can't meet the deadline, replace them. Luna watched the transformation with fascination. This was the Camden Blackwood the world knew, the ruthless executioner who showed no mercy. When he hung up, his expression was troubled. Is everything okay? She asked. Camden hesitated. The Wellington acquisition is complicated. The company is failing, but it employs over 2,000 people. If I dismantle it for assets, those jobs are gone. And if you don't? My investors expect a 20% return. Keeping Wellington operational would cut that in half. Luna studied him. What would you do if money wasn't the point? Camden looked genuinely startled by the question, as if no one had ever asked him such a thing before. Their conversation was interrupted by the vibration of Luna's phone. Her face fell as she read the message. What's wrong? Camden asked, instantly alert. My grandmother's caregiver quit. My brother can't miss any more school or he'll fail the semester. Luna's hands trembled slightly. I need to get home. Jones will take you, Camden said immediately. Then more hesitantly, would you like me to come? I could help figure something out. The offer was so unexpected that Luna nearly declined automatically, but something stopped her. Perhaps the genuine concern in his eyes, so at odds with the cold businessman of moments before. Actually, she said, surprising herself, that would be helpful. As the Bentley navigated back toward Queens, Luna found herself sneaking glances at the billionaire beside her, trying to reconcile the ruthless tycoon with the man who offered bookstores and seemed genuinely concerned about an old woman he'd never met. Camden caught her looking and raised an eyebrow. Something on your mind? Luna smiled wryly. Just wondering which Camden Blackwood is going to meet my grandmother, the executioner or the bookstore dreamer. And his response was unexpectedly vulnerable. Let me know when you figure it out. Then, after a pause, I'd like to know too. Carmen Morales had the kind of dignified beauty that age and illness couldn't diminish. Sitting in her worn armchair, by the window of the small Queens apartment, her hands trembling with Parkinson's, she possessed a regal quality that made Camden oddly nervous, a sensation he hadn't experienced in boardrooms with men controlling billions. So you're the father, she said without preamble, her accent thickening her words but not dulling their impact. Camden, perched uncomfortably on a couch with a suspicious spring, nodded. Yes, ma'am. Carmen's dark eyes, so like Luna's, assessed him with unnerving precision. And you are here because… Abuela, Luna interrupted from the kitchenette where she was preparing tea. Camden offered to help find a new caregiver. I don't need charity from strange men, Carmen declared firmly. Camden cleared his throat. It's not charity, Mrs. Morales. I'm responsible for Luna's current condition. That makes me responsible for ensuring she can continue her education without worrying about your care. Carmen's expression softened marginally. You speak like a businessman. I am a businessman. And what business do you have with my granddaughter, beyond this baby? The directness of the question caught Camden off guard. What business indeed? The practical arrangement he'd proposed at the bookstore suddenly seemed hollow when faced with Carmen's penetrating gaze. Luna rescued him by returning with mugs of tea, followed by a lanky teenager with her same dark curls and suspicious eyes. "This is my brother Mateo," Luna introduced. "Mateo, this is Camden Blackwood." Mateo didn't offer his hand. "The billionaire baby daddy. Cool." "Mateo," Luna scolded. Camden smiled, unexpectedly appreciating the boy's hostility more than fake politeness. "Nice to meet you, Mateo." "Whatever," the teen muttered. "I'm guessing you're not here to propose to my sister?" "Mateo, enough," Carmen interjected firmly. "Mr. Blackwood is a guest in our home." An awkward silence fell. Camden glanced around the apartment, small but immaculate, decorated with family photos and mementos. Despite its shabby furniture and peeling paint, it radiated more warmth than his own sterile penthouse ever had. "Luna tells me you enjoy reading, Mrs. Morales," Camden said, noticing the stack of well-worn books beside her chair. Carmen's face brightened. "Since I was a girl. My father was a literature professor in Puerto Rico before we came here. He taught me to love stories." "Abuela knows Garcia Marquez by heart," Luna said with affectionate pride. 100 Years of Solitude was my mother's favorite novel," Camden offered, surprising himself with the personal revelation. For the first time, Carmen smiled at him. "Your mother had excellent taste." The conversation flowed more easily after that, centered around books and stories. Carmen proved to be widely read and sharp-witted, while Mateo gradually abandoned his hostile stance to join the discussion when it turned to science fiction. Camden found himself relaxing, sharing stories of his mother's book collection that he rarely spoke about. The peaceful moment was interrupted by Camden's phone vibrating insistently. He checked it with a frown. "I need to take this," he apologized, stepping into the hallway. "Harrison, what now?" His CFO sounded frantic. "The Wellington deal is falling apart. Their CEO is threatening to sell to Prescott Ventures instead." "Prescott?" Camden's voice hardened. "Oliver doesn't have the capital. Apparently he's found investors. They're meeting in an hour at Le Bernardin to finalize." Camden checked his watch. "Stall them. I'll be there in 30 minutes." When he returned to the apartment, Luna was helping Carmen with her medication. "You're leaving," she said, not a question. "Business emergency. I'm sorry." Camden hesitated. "About your grandmother's caregiver?" "We'll manage," Luna interrupted, her expression closing off. Camden recognized the pride in her stance, the same stubborn self-reliance that had made her walk away that morning after the gala without leaving her number. "Luna, please, let me help." "Why?" she challenged. "Because of the baby? Or because you feel guilty?" "Because I care," he replied, the words escaping before he could consider their implications. Her eyes widened slightly. "My mother raised me alone while working 3 jobs," Camden continued quietly. "She refused help from anyone, even when she got sick. Her pride cost her years of her life, years I could have had with her if she'd just accepted the treatment she needed." Luna's expression softened. "Camden, I have a service that provides in-home medical care," he pressed on. "Professional caregivers, nurses, they could help until you've decided about the bookstore offer." From her armchair, Carmen observed their exchange with shrewd eyes. "Luna, show Mr. Blackwood out. He has important business to attend to." Camden approached the older woman, bowing slightly in a gesture of respect. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Morales." "You'll come for dinner next week," she replied, somewhere between request and command. "Sunday, 7 o'clock. We'll discuss this caregiving arrangement then." Camden smiled. "I'd be honored." In the hallway outside, Luna leaned against the wall studying him. "You handled that well. Abuela doesn't usually warm to strangers so quickly." "She's remarkable," Camden said sincerely. "I see where you get your strength." Luna's cheeks colored slightly. "About the caregiving service?" "Just a phone call," Camden assured her. "No strings attached." Their eyes met, the tension of attraction still palpable between them despite the complications of their situation. "You should go," Luna said softly. "Your business emergency awaits." Camden hesitated, suddenly reluctant to return to the world of mergers and acquisitions when the warm little apartment with its threadbare furniture and strong coffee beckoned. "The Wellington deal," he explained. 2,000 jobs at stake." "And what will the executioner do with those jobs?" Luna asked, not unkindly. Camden's phone vibrated again. "I need to go." "Camden," Luna called as he started toward the elevator. When he turned, she offered a small smile. "Sunday, 7 o'clock. Don't be late." It felt strangely like a lifeline. Le Bernardine hummed with the quiet luxury that only old money could afford. Camden strode through the restaurant, nodding at familiar faces while his mind remained in a queen's apartment with peeling wallpaper. In a private dining room, Oliver Prescott sat across from Howard Wellington, the silver-haired CEO of Wellington Industries, and a trio of serious men in identical navy suits. "Camden," Oliver's false joviality didn't mask his disappointment at the interruption. "We were just discussing the future of Wellington Industries." "Were you?" Camden took the empty seat at the head of the table. "Howard, I thought we had an agreement." Wellington looked uncomfortable. "Your terms were difficult, Camden. Prescott Ventures is offering to maintain our operations." "At a loss?" Camden raised an eyebrow. How philanthropic of Oliver. Oliver's smile tightened. "Unlike you, Blackwood, some of us consider more than just the bottom line." The irony of Oliver Prescott, who had tormented him mercilessly for being poor, posing as a champion of working people, wasn't lost on Camden. Neither was the calculation behind it. Oliver wanted Wellington Industries for its valuable patents, not its workforce. The preservation of jobs was a temporary ploy to secure the deal. Camden studied Oliver, seeing not the successful businessman but the spoiled boy who had mocked his shoes. For 15 years, Camden had built his empire with revenge as the foundation, buying companies from beneath former classmates, destroying the businesses of those who had once looked down on him. Oliver Prescott represented the final conquest in that crusade. But as Camden prepared to deliver the crushing counteroffer that would secure Wellington Industries and devastate Oliver financially, Luna's question echoed in his mind. What would you do if money wasn't the point? Camden thought of Carmen Morales, dignified despite her illness, of Mateo, protective of his sister despite his youth, of Luna, working double shifts while pursuing her degree, never complaining about the unfairness of her struggles. And for the first time in his ruthless ascent to power, Camden Blackwood questioned what he was truly fighting for. "Gentlemen," he said finally, "I'd like to propose an alternative." For the next hour, Camden outlined a restructuring plan that would preserve Wellington Industries as an operational subsidiary of Blackwood Enterprises, maintaining all current employment while gradually transitioning to sustainable profitability. "This is highly irregular," his CFO sputtered when Camden finished. "It's insane," Oliver added bluntly. "You'll take a 30% hit on projected returns." 32%, Camden corrected calmly. "But Wellington's sustainable energy patents align with my company's 5-year diversification strategy." Howard Wellington's eyes shone with undisguised relief. "You'd keep the company intact? No layoffs?" "No layoffs," Camden confirmed. "In fact, I'd like to expand the research division." As the meeting adjourned with handshakes and sighs of relief, Oliver cornered Camden by the coat check. "What game are you playing, Blackwood? This isn't like you." Camden adjusted his scarf. "Perhaps you don't know me as well as you think, Oliver." "This is about that waitress, isn't it?" Oliver sneered. "The one who came to your office. Word gets around, you know. Camden Blackwood's little queen's conquest." Camden's hand shot out, gripping Oliver's silk tie with sudden, dangerous intensity. "Careful," he warned, voice soft but lethal. Oliver paled. "Hit a nerve, did I?" Camden released him, straightening his tie with deliberate precision. "You know, Oliver, I've spent 15 years building an empire with one purpose, proving that the poor scholarship kid with taped-up shoes could own you and everyone like you." He smiled coldly. And I've succeeded. So thoroughly that I no longer need to care what you think. Oliver's eyes widened at the reference to their childhood encounter. You remember that? I remember everything, Camden replied. Every taunt, every humiliation. I built Blackwood Enterprises on the foundation of those memories. That's disturbing, Oliver managed. Camden laughed, genuinely amused for the first time in their encounter. Perhaps, but I'm beginning to think there might be better foundations for the next phase of my life. As he walked away, Camden felt oddly lighter, as if setting down a burden he'd carried since childhood. His phone chimed with a text message from Luna. Abuela insists you bring dessert on Sunday, something chocolate. Peace. The caregiving service called. Thank you. Camden smiled, sliding into the back seat of his waiting Bentley. Jones, we need to make a stop at that chocolatier on Madison. Very good, sir, his driver replied, catching Camden's unusually relaxed expression in the rearview mirror. May I ask the occasion? Camden gazed out at the city, thinking of the strange new path unfolding before him. Family dinner? He said, testing how the words felt on his tongue. They felt surprisingly right. 3 months had transformed Camden Blackwood's life in ways no business acquisition ever had. Sunday family dinners at the Morales apartment had become the highlight of his week. He'd learned to play dominoes with Carmen, who showed no mercy despite her trembling hands. He'd introduced Mateo to coding, discovering the boy's natural aptitude for technology, and he'd fallen more deeply for Luna with each passing day, though neither had put words to the feelings growing between them. Today, Camden paced the rooftop garden of the brownstone bookstore, making last-minute adjustments to the small table set for two, with the Manhattan skyline glittering beyond. After weeks of Carmen's not-so-subtle matchmaking and Mateo's eye-rolling commentary on their obvious attraction, Camden had finally asked Luna to dinner, just the two of them. You're nervous, observed Jones, who had arrived with the catered meal from Luna's favorite restaurant. Camden straightened silverware that was already perfectly aligned. That's ridiculous. I negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. Yes, sir, Jones replied, his usually stoic expression softening with something like amusement. The flowers are excessive. Camden surveyed the dozens of arrangements transforming the rooftop into a fragrant garden. Too much? For anyone else, yes. Jones adjusted his tie. For Ms. Morales, perhaps appropriate. The loyalty in Jones's voice wasn't lost on Camden. Over the past months, his normally reserved driver had become almost protective of Luna and her family, volunteering to drive Carmen to medical appointments and teaching Mateo to parallel park in the Bentley, something Camden himself hadn't known about until he'd received the parking ticket. His staff had been transformed by the Morales family's introduction into his life. His cold, efficient household had somehow warmed, as if Luna had brought sunshine into rooms that had never known natural light. The bookstore below was now open, managed by Luna 3 days a week while she continued her nursing studies. Camden often found himself inventing reasons to visit, watching her recommend novels to customers, or read to children during the weekend story hour, her pregnancy now visible in the gentle curve beneath her flowing dresses. Luna had agreed to the apartment above the store only after establishing strict boundaries. She paid rent, an amount Camden considered symbolic, but she insisted was fair market value. She maintained her independence, and the arrangement was temporary until she finished her degree. They were co-parents preparing for a child, she maintained. Nothing more. But something had shifted in recent weeks. Lingering glances, conversations that stretched late into the night, the electricity of accidental touches. Camden found himself sharing thoughts he'd never vocalized, while Luna gradually revealed the dreams she'd set aside to care for her family. The sound of the rooftop door opening pulled Camden from his thoughts. Luna appeared, wearing a simple, blue dress that made her eyes seem even darker. At 5 months pregnant, she glowed with a vitality that took his breath away. "This is... wow," she said, taking in the transformed space. Camden pulled out her chair. "Too much?" Luna laughed. Definitely, but somehow perfect. As they ate, conversation flowed easily between them. Discussions of the bookstore's success, Luna's nursing program, Carmen's improving health under the care of the medical team Camden had arranged. They carefully avoided the topic of what happened after the baby arrived, maintaining the fiction that their arrangement was purely practical. The Wellington restructuring is going well, Camden offered as they finished dessert. The renewable energy division is already showing promise. Luna studied him over her sparkling water. You never told me why you changed your mind about that deal. Camden hesitated. How could he explain that a simple question from her had unraveled 15 years of single-minded ambition? That meeting her family had made him question what true success looked like. I realized I was building an empire for the wrong reasons, he said finally. Revenge is a hollow foundation. And what are the right reasons? I'm still figuring that out. His eyes met hers. But I think it has something to do with creating something meaningful, something that lasts. Luna's hand rested protectively over her stomach. Like a family? The word hung between them, charged with possibilities neither had acknowledged. Luna, The shrill ring of his phone interrupted the moment. Camden checked the screen with a frown. I need to take this, it's the Tokyo office. Luna nodded, rising from the table. I'll give you privacy. While Camden handled the call, a minor crisis that his Tokyo team could have resolved without him, Luna wandered to the edge of the rooftop garden. The city spread before her, a tapestry of lights against the darkening sky. Somewhere in that glittering landscape was her old apartment, where she'd spent countless nights worrying about bills and Carmen's health. Now she stood on a rooftop garden, carrying the child of one of New York's wealthiest men, with her grandmother receiving the best medical care available and her brother applying to top universities with Camden's encouragement. It felt like a fairy tale, and that was precisely what worried her. Camden joined her at the railing. Sorry about that. It's who you are, Luna replied. Camden Blackwood, the business titan. Is that all you think I am? He asked quietly. Luna turned to face him. I don't know what to think, Camden. 3 months ago, you were a one-night stand who turned out to be a billionaire. Now you're... She gestured helplessly. I'm what? That's just it. I don't know. Luna's voice trembled slightly. You've created this perfect bubble for us. The bookstore, the apartment, the medical care for Abuela. But bubbles burst, Camden. They always do. This isn't a bubble, he insisted. Isn't it? You live in a world of corporate takeovers and private jets. I'm a nursing student from Queens. This arrangement works now, but what happens when the novelty wears off? When the baby comes and reality sets in? Is that what you think this is? A novelty? Luna shrugged, fighting tears. What else could it be? Men like you don't end up with women like me except in fairy tales. Camden studied her face in the glow of the string lights, seeing the vulnerability beneath her fierce independence. My mother used to read me fairy tales, he said softly. But she always changed the endings. Luna raised an eyebrow. How? She said the prince didn't matter, that Cinderella would have been fine on her own, that she was always worthy with or without the glass slipper or the castle. Camden moved closer. My mother believed the real magic wasn't in fairy godmothers or enchanted pumpkins, but in recognizing your own worth. Sounds like a wise woman. She was. Camden took a deep breath. She also said that if I ever found someone who made me want to be better than I was, I should never let them go. Luna's eyes widened. Camden. I'm not good at this, he interrupted. Relationships, feelings. I've spent my adult life building walls no one could breach. Then you walked into my office and announced you were pregnant, and suddenly those walls seemed pointless. I didn't ask for this, Luna whispered. For you to change your life. You didn't have to ask. You just had to exist. Camden took her hands. Luna Morales, you stormed into my carefully controlled world and turned it upside down. You made me question everything I thought I wanted. You and your grandmother and your brother showed me what I've been missing while I've been accumulating. Wealth and power. And what's that? A family, Camden said simply. A real one. Not built on obligation or practicality, but on... On what? Luna prompted, her heart pounding. On love, he finished, the word foreign, yet right on his tongue. I'm in love with you, Luna. Not because of the baby, although I already love our child too. I'm in love with the woman who stood up for a co-worker at the risk of her own job, who works double shifts to support her family, who refuses to accept charity but offers kindness freely to everyone she meets. Luna blinked rapidly, tears spilling onto her cheeks. You can't just say things like that. Why not? Because I might believe you, she exclaimed. And then what happens when you realize that caring for a baby means sleepless nights and messy diaper changes? When you get tired of explaining to your society friends why you're with someone who was once your server? Camden smiled. You think so little of me? I think so naturally of what happens in the real world, Luna corrected, where different worlds rarely mix successfully. Camden reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. Luna gasped. What are you doing? Something I should have done months ago. He opened the box, revealing not a ring, but a key. This isn't a marriage proposal, not yet. We have time for that if and when you're ready. Then what is it? A key to my home. My real home, not this apartment I set up for you. Camden held it out. I want us to create a home together, Luna. Somewhere that's ours, not mine or yours. Somewhere we choose together that reflects both of us. Luna stared at the key. You want us to live together? I want us to be a family, Camden clarified. You, me, our baby, and Carmen and Mateo too if they want. Or they can stay in the apartment here if they prefer independence. You've thought this through, Luna observed, a smile tugging at her lips. I plan hostile takeovers for a living, Camden reminded her with a grin, though this is the first time I've planned one with my heart instead of my head. Luna laughed, the sound like music in the night air. Your corporate board will have a fit. The executioner domesticated by a waitress from Queens. Former waitress, Camden corrected, pulling her closer. Current bookstore manager, future nurse, and hopefully... He hesitated. My future wife. Someday. When you're ready. Luna's breath caught. Is that part of your corporate strategy too? No, Camden murmured, his lips inches from hers. That's purely selfish. I love you, Luna Morales. You've taught me what actually matters in this world, and it isn't stock options or corporate mergers. What matters then? She whispered. This, he replied, kissing her with all the tenderness she'd awakened in him. Us. Family. Love. When they finally parted, Luna studied him with glistening eyes. You know, for a ruthless billionaire, you can be surprisingly romantic. Only with you. Camden placed a gentle hand on her rounded stomach. And maybe with this little one. As if in response, the baby kicked against his palm. Luna laughed at his expression of wonder. I think that's a yes, she said softly, taking the key from the box. To the home, to the family, to us. And the someday proposal? Camden asked, heart racing with an emotion no business victory had ever evoked. Luna smiled, winding her arms around his neck. Ask me again in a year, Mr. Blackwood. When we've weathered midnight feedings and diaper explosions. When you've seen me at my worst and I've seen you at yours. If you still want to marry a headstrong woman from Queens, then I will, he promised, sealing the vow with another kiss. Every day of our lives I will. 1 year later, the grand opening of the Carmen Morales Memorial Hospital wing drew crowds of reporters and benefactors. Camden stood at the podium, unusually nervous as he prepared to address the gathered press. The Blackwood Foundation's largest project to date is dedicated to providing accessible healthcare to underserved communities, he began. Named in honor of Carmen Morales, whose strength in the face of illness inspired its creation. In the Idora front row, Luna sat with their 6-month-old daughter, Elisa Carmen Blackwood, who babbled happily in her mother's arms. Beside them, Mateo, now a freshman at Columbia, recorded the speech on his phone. Carmen hadn't lived to see her great-granddaughter's birth, but her spirit infused the family Camden had once never dared to dream of having. 3 years ago, Camden continued, I measured success by acquisitions and profit margins. Today, I measure it differently. His eyes found Luna's. Today, success is about the lives we touch, the communities we serve, and the love we share. The press conference concluded with the announcement of the Blackwood Foundation's next initiative, a scholarship program for nursing students from low-income backgrounds, inspired by Luna's recently completed degree. As the crowd dispersed, Camden joined his family, taking his daughter into his arms. She immediately grabbed his tie, a habit that never failed to melt the heart of the man once known as the executioner. Ready for our next adventure, Mrs. Blackwood? He asked, pressing a kiss to Luna's forehead. The simple gold band on her finger caught the light as she smiled up at him. Always, Mr. Blackwood. Behind them, the hospital wing's entrance featured a plaque with Carmen's favorite quote from Garcia Marquez. It's enough for me to be sure that you and I exist at this moment. And for the family that had found each other against all odds, the billionaire with a painful past and the waitress who had healed his heart, existing together in this moment, and all the moments to come, was more than enough. It was everything.